can do what you want. Allah is with us. Right from the
Alrighty, chat. Welcome on into the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live, and it is honestly, what can I say? What can I say, chat? Because news that happened yesterday just it has made me, it makes me pause because, obviously I'm a talker. We are on this stream because I'm a talker. We are entering a phase that I don't think many Americans are familiar with, which is the doing part. I don't know if you noticed, the country kind of falling apart because not enough people are doing things. And the Trump administration has just admitted that they made it all up. Justice Department drops claim that Venezuela's Cartel de las Solas is an actual group. American media claimed that Maduro was the leader of this cartel, but now they admit it's fake. But how come the mainstream media acted like it was real? How come so many media places acted like it was real? Soles. Sorry, I don't speak Spanish. It's not even a CIA creation. It's just a slang term from the 90s, referring to the previous conservative government in Venezuela and how some people within that government would profit from illegal drug trade. It's never been connected to Chavez or Maduro or exist. It was just a slang term referring basically to corruption in the government under the conservative. It's not even that it's a lie. It's that American media put it out there like it's real. And you were supposed to act like you knew what it was and that it was a thing. Can I not search highlighted text? And here it is in News Nation. Cartel de las Solas. What to know about group connected to Maduro. Now the Justice Department admits it isn't real. U.S. prosecutors drop core narco cartel narrative and stunning Venezuela indictment shift. Oh, what the fuck? Okay, that's what I thought I had copied, but I guess not. Doopsie daisy. This is how dumb this is. So, they're narco terrorists, except there is no narco. Presumably, Donald Trump is going to say that some members of the government, were involved in some drug trafficking and Maduro may have known about it. And therefore, that means he's a narco terrorist. So, okay, we're sitting here, we're dumbfounded. Right? We're dumbfounded. It's ridiculous. And unfortunately, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Like, what can you say? Look at all these places. What is this cartel of the Suns? I mean, it's just people pretended this was real. BBC 1 month ago. What is the Cartel de las Solas, and which is the U.S. is labeled as a terrorist organization? Then they just show members of the Venezuelan military. Questions have been raised as whether the Cartel de las Solas actually exists, and Venezuela's foreign ministry has categorically, firmly, absolutely rejected the designation, which it describes as a new and ridiculous lie. Not surprisingly, Venezuela's Interior Justice Minister, Diosdado Cabello, has long called it an invention. Cabello, who is alleged to be one of the high-ranking members of the cartel. Look at the way the BBC laundered this shit. And the only people they said it was a lie was the Venezuelans, who are they implying that they're all, and now a month later it's completely dropped. Aren't you supposed to be journalists? Are you supposed to go and look at the facts? Aren't you supposed to go and say, hey, has anyone heard of this thing? Does it actually exist? Whenever someone bothers them, they name them as the head of the Cartel de las Solas, he said in August. Gustavo Petro, the left-wing president of Venezuela's member. Why is that in there? Isn't that just Colombia's president? Now suddenly ideology gets injected? Are you going to put Hillary Clinton, corporate centrist piece of shit? I'm sorry for losing my mind. We are attacking another country. They killed dozens of people. We committed first-degree murder of innocent people, and you fucking evil rats pretend like it's not a thing. And I gotta tell you, chat, we know what needs to be done, okay? We know what needs to be done. Colombia has also denied the cartel's existence. It is a fictional excuse of the far right to bring down governments. They do not obey them, he wrote on X in August. But the U.S. State Department is adamant that the Cartel de las Solas not only exists, but has corrupted Venezuela's military, intelligence, legislature, and judiciary. Experts consulted by the BBC say the truth lies somewhere in between. Oh, does it? Oh, does it? The term Cartel de las Solas first emerged in the early 90s. It was coined by the Venezuelan media in the wake of drug trafficking allegations against a general in charge of counter-narcotic operations in Venezuela's National Guard, and referred to the sun-shaped insignia worn by generals on their epaulets to indicate their rank. Mike L'Souza, an expert in organized crime in the Americas who is deputy content director at Insight Crime, says the moniker soon to be used for all Venezuelan officials with alleged links to drug trafficking, regardless of whether those officials were part of the same organization. In other words, the organization doesn't exist. It's not an organization. They made it all up. What do you mean lies in between? It then strengthened during the early years of the president of Hugo Chavez. Chavez liked to challenge the United States to cut all military cooperation ties between the Venezuelan army and the U.S., he explains. That has nothing to do with reality. Without the oversight of the DEA, some Venezuelan army officers felt free to do business with criminals. In other words, without America, world police, then everybody becomes a cartel member. Do you understand that this is absolute blather? Oh, hey, what do you know? He's in the Wilson Center, aka a CIA cutout. Well, what do you fucking know? What do you fucking know? He's in the Mexico Institute of the Wilson Center. Well, what do you fucking know? Another CIA cutout. Yay! A Washington, D.C. based think tank. It serves as both the official presidential memorial to Woodrow Wilson and operates as part of the Smithsonian. As a nonpartisan think tank, it is a public-private partnership with approximately 1/3 of the center's operating funds coming annually from an appropriation of the U.S. government. The center's housed in a wing of the Ronald Reagan building. Guys, I think it might be, an American-aligned group. I don't know, seeing how it's funded by the U.S. military. Excuse me, funded by the U.S. government. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. And the United States of America, if you are listening to me right now and you're not in the United States, you're not a U.S. citizen, I need you to start demanding that your country forms an anti-American alliance. This country has to be contained. We are not going to stop. Without the oversight, Chavez's sympathies with Colombia's left-wing FARC guerrillas, which finance themselves largely through cocaine smuggling, were another factor in rerouting some drug trafficking through Venezuela, he says. So now they're not even really talking about it existing. They're talking about basically, I mean, this is all nonsense. This is actually, they began flooding the U.S. with hundreds of tons of cocaine, he says. I thought this was fentanyl. The Cartel de las Solas then differs from other drug networks in that it lacks a formal structure, says Mr. L'Souza. It's not a group per se, he says, rather a system of widespread corruption, except so it doesn't exist. Justice Department drops claim that Venezuela's Cartel de las Solas is an actual group. And here was the BBC. Look at how the BBC decided to report on this 1 month ago. A group that does not exist. This should be a fucking stain. Where's the correction? In a statement released on Monday, the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry called the designation of the Cartel de las Solas as a terrorist organization a ridiculous fabrication. Said it insisted that it was non-existent. That move was a vile lie to justify an illegitimate and illegal intervention against Venezuela. Looks like Venezuela was completely correct. Are we going to have a correction in the BBC where they say, well, it looks like the Justice Department says it's not real anymore. I guess we were wrong. Guess Venezuela was right. I always ask myself why the propaganda is so bad, but let's be real. It does not have to be better. Dumb Westerners eat that shit anyway or do not really care enough. The answer is that if you are a person whose brain can read and comprehend this news article, you are already in the top 25% of human intellect. If you could read this article and then challenge it through coherent, rational, critical reading, you are in the top 10%. That's just reality. I don't know what else to say. So what are these articles really for? They're for these. They're for signaling. A lot of people succeed through social signaling. They can't really comprehend what's going on around them. So they just operate as the way that the social group is operating. They kind of move along with the herd. And maybe they'll pick up a couple talking points to repeat. But they're not actually thoughts. It's like a parrot. Representative Doug LaMalfa of California has died at 65. GOP officials say his death reduces the party's control of the House to 218 to 213. I mean, what do you even say? What do you even say? What do you even say?
So Cuba's days are numbered. Colombia isn't going to be doing this anymore. Okay, yeah, I can see there's definitely a trend here. You specifically said you'd be against foreign intervention and nation building. Why have you switched positions? Well, I'm generally against it, but there are some instances where I'd be okay with it. It's pretty.
Okay, the reason why Asmongold is against it is because he doesn't believe in anything, and that's the popular position. Why is that a popular position? Well, the answer is when the United States went to Iraq, they got killed a lot, and a lot of American soldiers came back without a dick, literally. The improvised explosive devices that they used to ride their unarmored Humvees over would castrate soldiers. And so a lot of American men came back to burned husk without dicks and balls. This is literally true. And so since they started getting consequences for their actions, you know, getting killed, losing their dicks, suddenly they started to learn the idea of, hey, we shouldn't be involving ourselves in other countries. That's wrong. See, when it looked like it might work, they were all in favor of it. But when they came home dickless, suddenly they started to change their tune. So if you want to change Asmongold's tune, the only way to make a fascist change their tune is to blow their dick off in, you know, obviously, I'm not saying do it to Asmongold. I'm just talking about the American soldiers that tread on foreign countries illegally. Like that is, and in fact, it was so common, it was studied and published. Injury profiles suffered by targets of anti-personnel improvised explosive devices prospective cohort study. Prospective cohort study of 100 consecutive pedestrian victims of anti-personnel improvised explosive devices with traumatic amputation without regard for gender, nationality, or military status. 100 patients, all male. Victims of anti-personnel improvised explosive devices were more likely to have multiple amputations or genital injury. 5 quadruple and 70 patients of the 100. 5 were quadruple amputees, 27 triple amputees, and 38 double amputees. Pelvic fracture in 21 victims, all but one of whom had multiple amputations. Severe perineal, gluteal, or genital injuries were present in 46 patients. Severe soft tissue injury was universal with injection of contaminated soil along tissue plates well above entry sites. Pelvic binders and tourniquets should be applied at the point of injury to patients with multiple amputations or perineal injuries. This is the reality of what these wars are. Now, what happened in Venezuela is they swooped in, they bribed some guys, and they got out, right? That's different than a land invasion, a ground invasion. That's different than sticking American troops to patrol Venezuelan streets. The proliferation of, do you understand the drone technology that will go in? All you need to do is get fiber optic drones. You connect them to a little cable, the drone comes out, can't be jammed, flies right in to a Humvee and gives 6 guys a fucking circumcision. Adult circumcision for $200.
So Cuba's days are numbered. Colombia isn't going to be doing this anymore. Okay, yeah, I can see there's definitely a trend here. You specifically said you'd be against foreign intervention and nation building. Why have you switched positions? Well, I'm generally against it, but there are some instances where I'd be okay with it. It's pretty simple. Like, I think it's something that's generally a bad idea, but if we can get enough money out of the place that we're intervening in, and we can effectively make it worthwhile for us, then I'd be okay with it. Does that make sense? So it's all about whether we're making money off of it. That's my primary function, is that I think about, is this good for Americans?
By the way, chat, this logic, the logic of just steal what we can get away with, I want to let you know that I am a socialist. I believe that we should take money from the rich to help all of humanity. Asmongold believes we should take money from the weak to help the strong. Now, the problem with that idea is that nobody's really strong. Every man is vulnerable to every other man. Donald Trump, former president of the United States, surrounded by Secret Service, some neat moron who was too poor to even buy an optic for his rifle, climbed on top of a roof and was 2 inches away from scattering Donald Trump's brains, okay? There is no one who is truly strong, okay? Like, the reality is we are all vulnerable to each other. And that is both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing in that it helps demolish ideas like Asmongold says that he's a god. Asmongold thinks he's a god. And the other reality is everybody dies at some point. And the only thing that is remembered is what you did in life. That's what will go down in history.
And if it is,
He didn't even have iron sights, Aegis. If he had iron sights, I think he just had a rifle with no sights at all. I think he had no sights at all installed. Like he was actually a total moron.
it's making us money, it's beneficial for us, it's lowering our costs, or there's some other downstream effect of it, then yeah, I'd be okay with it. But us just going over there and doing it for no reason, no, I don't think so. So yeah. And but that's really that's my viewpoint on it. That's what I think. No more pointless wars, period. Economical, logical interventions are fine. Yeah, exactly. And even if it costs civilian lives, yeah, who gives a shit? Like, I mean, if the thing is that,
by the way, chat, Asmongold is a civilian. Asmongold is a civilian.
If you're going to do this stuff, people are going to get killed. That's what's going to happen. It's going to happen for sure.
Asmongold is a civilian. Keep that in mind. Even if it would cost civilian lives, yeah, who gives a shit? Asmongold says he supports invading other countries as long as we're making money off of it. Bot downvoted. Instantly bot downvoted. Asmongold, it's so funny how botted LSF is. Is Twitch going to do something about that? Fucking Reddit. And its own platform being botted to hell. Asmongold isn't even a legitimate streamer. He bots 30, 40,000 fucking viewers. It's actually batshit crazy. Reddit has ran out of Fort Eglin, so it's not like they'll stop botting. It's the whole business. I mean, based. Yeah, I know. Crazy. Botting is seen as favorable due to the engagement and number of unique visitors. You understand that the point of this shit is to actually make money for the people who advertise on your site. And when half the viewers don't even exist, it makes advertising on this website look ineffective, thereby decreasing the number of investment in it. But yeah, based. All right, so chat, Asmongold wants you to know that civilians, he's a civilian. It's good to kill them as long as you make money. That's what Asmongold wants you to understand about his position. 80-year-old Indiana Rep Jim Bayard is in the hospital after a car crash. So House Republican attendance is a massive, massive problem right now. 2 GOP reps are currently down. It's 217 to 213 because Doug LaMalfa just died at 65. Another one is now in the hospital after a car crash. It's now 217 to 213. Didn't Marjorie Taylor Greene quit? All right, chat, let's keep covering the Maduro stuff. So Maduro was finally arraigned. And guess what, chat? He pled not guilty.
We're going to begin with a dramatic first court appearance by Nicolas Maduro right here in New York City. Venezuela's former leader and his wife arrived from a Brooklyn jail under very heavy guard yesterday. Both pled not guilty, with Maduro at times appearing
By the way, if the Venezuelan government did an operation to rescue Maduro where they shot a bunch of DEA agents and they fucking grabbed them, would that be legitimate? I mean, you would have to say yes, right? Like, you would have to say yes. I mean, obviously it would be against American law, but international law.
defiant, using the hearing as a platform. Our chief correspondent, Matt Gutman, was there. You know, who's going to bring us the latest this morning. Matt, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Gail. Arraignments are typically short and procedural. This was different, with Maduro insisting at one point that he is an innocent man, that he was kidnapped, and that he is still the legal president of Venezuela. The judge interrupting him, saying, I just need to know if you understand your rights and the charges against you.
Shackled and shuffling in those jail khakis beside his escort of at least a dozen federal agents, the former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Celia Flores, were choppered from the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, then loaded into this armored van for their first trip to this Manhattan federal courthouse. There already, dozens of New York police officers and a divided crowd of protesters.
Right now you can hear tensions mounting between demonstrators here who are supporting Maduro's arrest and those who oppose it, who say that the U.S. should never have been in Venezuela to begin with.
Inside the courtroom, it was Maduro who spoke out. The former president is facing 4 federal weapons and drug-related charges, including narco-terrorism. When the judge asked him to confirm his identity, the deposed leader launched into a speech, saying through a translator, I am innocent, I am a decent man, adding that he was kidnapped from his home in Caracas before the judge cut Maduro off.
As arraignments go, this was pretty dramatic, actually.
CBS News legal analyst Caroline Polisi says that risky raid to snatch and grab Maduro early Saturday morning could complicate the government's case.
How difficult of a case do you think this will be to prosecute?
It will be difficult to prosecute in the beginning, most likely because there will be this slew of motions made regarding the legality of how it came to be that we extracted Maduro and his wife from Venezuela. Those motions will have to play out, but likely they won't be the end of this case.
Maduro and his wife both pleaded not guilty. Their lawyers said that they're currently not seeking bail, meaning the pair will remain at the Brooklyn Detention Center until their next court appearance.
In court, Celia Flores had those bandages over her head. Her attorney said that she had been injured in her ribs, possibly during that Saturday raid. It's unclear if Maduro himself had also been injured, but the judge said, of course, you will get all the medical attention you need. They will be back here on March 17th.
All right, Matt, thank you.
BBC journalists have been banned from describing the kidnapped Venezuelan leader as having been kidnapped. The BBC news editor has sent this to BBC journalists. To ensure clarity and consistency in our reporting, please follow these guidelines when describing the recent events in Venezuela. Captured. Please attribute this to the U.S. description of the operation. Example, the U.S. said Maduro was captured during the operation. Seized. Acceptable for use in our own reporting where appropriate. Avoid using kidnapped. Thank you for keeping this in mind as you work on related stories. I just tweeted, the BBC did a huge story about the Cartel de las Solas a month ago. Today, the Department of Justice admitted that it wasn't real. BBC is just American propaganda at this point. Just a reminder that Asmongold dad's final public words were happy birthday, Hassan. My general feeling about his dad and his mom are, one of the things that's really interesting is that in America, your life expectancy is often dependent upon your wealth. Like there are neighborhoods in Boston, for example, where the life expectancy is over 90 years old that are within a mile or two from communities where life expectancy is in the 50s. Now, what's really unique about Asmongold is he has the wealth of the people in the 90-year-old life expectancy, but the results of his own personal, like his own efforts, are life expectancies in the 50s and early 60s. And that's just a shame. That's why I think Asmongold in particular should pay a 100% tax rate, because even if somebody wasted it, even if somebody, stole the money and spent it on hookers, it would at least employ a hooker, as opposed to now, which is the money gets, I guess, fed to cockroaches. 100% tax rate for Asmongold. That's one of my platform planks. Just another distraction. They're going to release more redacted Epstein files. They just said, and this is a story we might get to today, but they just said that they've only looked at 1% of the Epstein files. They've only gone through 1% of the Epstein files. They're trying to make it old news by slow walking it. We're literally attacking Venezuela to distract from the fact that Asmongold supports a pedophile. That's what it is. Asmongold, I mean, of course he does. Like, of course he does. Half of his friends are accused sexual assaulters. Of course he loves the pedophile president. He said that he's basically saying that he's a nihilist sadist who thinks that we should just steal from other people if we can get away with it. Bitch, it's so fucking funny. Holy fuck, man. Can you imagine seeing Asmongold? I mean, if he had it, people would have stole his lunch money. But I guess he had the stink cloud as like a self-defense from bullies. Trump, we're gonna pull off a midterms election victory. Yeah, nah. All right, let's keep covering the Maduro shit.
It is imperative that Saddam Hussein faces justice and that we depose him swiftly.
Sir, for what reasons are we invading Iraq?
Yeah, so many reasons. They have weapons of mass destruction. First,
there are new Cura Personalis. They've redrawn all the districts. You need to go and look at the new districts, not the old districts.
Stuff. That's the big one.
But also we're bringing democracy to their people and toppling a terrible dictator. If you have any issues with this, ask Congress. They voted for this.
This is about freedom and nothing else.
Well, we want the stuff. I'm sorry, U.S. forces bombed Venezuela and captured Nicolas Maduro in order to get the stuff. Stuff? Sorry. We like the stuff that they have and we want to have it. But who will be in charge of the country now? Shit. Us, right? Yeah, us. Because then it's easier for us to have their stuff. If we'll just run the country and we'll just have the stuff. So yeah. Also, Maduro was bad.
Attorney General of the United States. That was.
Oh my God, dude. Oh, I can't. I can't.
Healthcare sort of like.
I can't listen to this fucking loser, dude. There is no legal case. There is no legal case against Maduro, New York Times podcast. There is no case. It's already falling apart.
The worst president did the worst job. They had the worst policy. We have to even run against these people. Now, I won't say cancel the election. They should cancel the election because the fake news will say, he wants the elections canceled. He's a dictator. They always call me a dictator. Nobody's worse than Obama. We had the worst president, did the worst job. They had the worst policy. We have to even run against these people. Now, I won't say cancel the election. They should cancel the election because the fake news will say, he wants the elections canceled. He's a dictator.
Okay, I just want to say this. Like, if any American politician calls for the elections to be canceled, who serves capital, they have committed treason. And in ancient Rome, they used to declare people persona non grata. They used to declare people an enemy of Rome. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you declared somebody that, it meant every single citizen had a duty to do that person harm if they were able, or kill them if they can. Okay? When you were declared an enemy of Rome, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we don't like that guy. It was every single person. Like, if you're standing in the room with him and you're a Roman citizen and his back is to you, you're supposed to stab him. You're supposed to kill that guy. You're supposed to slit his throat. That's what persona non grata meant. Like, you were not allowed to be a friend of that guy anymore. You weren't allowed to work with that guy. You had a duty, D-U-T-Y, to kill that motherfucker. Now, we don't do stuff like that anymore. We live in a more civilized time. But every single person in the government swears a duty to protect the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, if a candidate or a political official is saying they want to, cancel the elections because they don't want to run, that's treason against the Constitution. And everybody, that makes them a domestic enemy, which means they need to be stopped. What does stopped mean? Removed from power by any means necessary. That's what that would mean. And it's uncomfortable to say that, just like it's uncomfortable to say that Europe should prepare to go to war with the United States of America. It's uncomfortable to say that, but it happens to be true. It's back in the news today, chat, because Stephen Miller's wife, after Maduro was kidnapped, posted a picture of Greenland with an American flag superimposed upon it, saying soon.
We're back and continuing with the world lead and asking questions about what happened in Venezuela over the weekend and what happens now. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller.
Understand how Europe is very willing to go to war with Russia, right? They're very willing to go to war with Russia for seizing territory, but they're doing nothing when America is seizing even more territory and threatening directly to seize more territory. Where is the European distancing from America? Where are the sanctions? Where is the withdrawal from mutual defense treaties? Where are the targeting of American officials and billionaires?
Now, Stephen, thanks so much for joining us. So a source briefed on the Venezuelan operation told me that a handful of American troops sustained bullet and shrapnel wounds, but none are life-threatening. Can you share with us how serious any injuries to American service members might be, and also any information you can tell us about any Venezuelan civilian casualties?
Yes. Well, let me take the second part first, which is that the overwhelming share of casualties and fatalities that were inflicted were against the Cuban guard that had exerted control over the people of Venezuela. So what many don't realize is that for years, Maduro stayed in power through an illicit deal with Cuban communists to provide his security because he didn't trust his own people to keep him safe. That is how much he was hated inside of Venezuela. So what our special forces encountered when they did that daring midnight assault into Caracas were armed Cuban guards, and they sustained massive numbers of casualties. I can't give you an exact number. The numbers that you've seen in terms of the Cuban guards publicly reported are probably lower than the actual number that were killed. To your first question, no, none of the, at least as I've been briefed, none of the injuries are life-threatening. Everybody is stable. And it just underscores the remarkable skill, precision, courage, and capability of our special forces. And I wanted to set the table one more time for your audience. I'm sure you've talked about it at length already. The United States of America launched an assault force into Venezuelan territory,
right,
which has sophisticated air defense systems, which has sophisticated surveillance systems, which has...
By the way, Chad, it seems that the Venezuelan military has largely been unable to get replacement parts for its radar systems, and so and its air defense aircraft are no longer functional.
Weaponry that they've received that can take out planes and helicopters from our foreign adversaries that they've been stockpiling for years in anticipation of the possibility of such an action.
Right.
Maduro was staying in a military fortress. In other words, since the United States had started amassing this armada under President Trump's leadership and direction, he'd increasingly narrowed the scope of his own movement. He was sleeping in a fortress.
Yeah,
and so we flew into Caracas.
Yeah.
These special forces engage in direct gunfire with elite Cuban guards, and every single kill was an enemy kill.
So there were no civilian casualties?
Well, I didn't see any reports of any civilian casualties. But my point is that in this raging gunfire battle that took place, the point that I'm making to you is no Americans were killed.
Right.
Because of the planning, skill, and preparation, the enemy sustained massive losses.
Yeah.
Not one of our assets was lost, not one of our people was lost.
So let's talk about what next. Delcy Rodriguez was formally sworn as Venezuela's acting president this afternoon. She was the vice president. She described the U.S. intervention as, quote, without a doubt, Zionist in character, unquote. Is acting President Rodriguez someone that the U.S. can work with?
So the acting president put out a statement. I want to say, Jake, it was last night, pledging cooperation with the United States, pledging full and complete cooperation.
But they also just passed a law saying that if you supported the operation against outlawing individuals or threatening with criminal penalties individuals if they supported the operation against Maduro. I think they did that today.
Well, the good news there, Jake, is that nobody inside of Venezuela supported the operation, so it's a law without meaning or effect. Look, there's going to be some posturing that occurs when a nation has been so thoroughly defeated in this way. The United States of America, think about this. The United States of America has encircled this nation for months. One of the largest naval armadas in history has been stationed off its coast.
Yeah.
Fighter jets have been encircling the island. We've been engaging in kinetic lethal strikes against Maduro's drug boats and trained Arauco gang members leaving the island.
Yeah.
We have launched a complete oil embargo of
Venezuela isn't an island. It's on the mainland of South America.
Ghost fleet, the dark ships.
We've been covering all
of that, and now on top of all that, right, Maduro is sitting in a jail cell in New York, as is his wife. So of course there's going to be, this is very important though, of course there's going to be some posturing.
Okay.
Without giving anything away, I want to be very clear. Very clear. The government has sent messages, this is such an important point, Jake, to the Secretary of State, to our senior U.S. government official negotiators. They have sent message after message making clear that they will meet the terms, demands, conditions, and requirements of the United States.
Okay.
And I want to be very clear about that, Jake.
So let's, the question about who is now running Venezuela is one that even members of Congress who are big Trump supporters say they're not quite sure about. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN's Manu Raju that he doesn't know what President Trump meant by his assertion that the U.S. is running Venezuela, and he said he needs more information. Can you tell us what the president means when he says, is acting President Delcy Rodriguez in charge? Is she running Venezuela?
What the president said is true. The United States of America is running Venezuela. By definition, that's true. Jake, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by, these are the...
Now, okay, this is just, obviously, this is what we're talking about. This is why I am a Marxist and not some other form of left-winger. This is obviously true. Of course, it's obviously true. Stephen Miller doesn't understand is that there's a lot more of us proletarians, workers, than there are of you, capitalists. And eventually, class consciousness will continue to grow. And I agree with Marx. When it's our turn, we will not apologize. for what needs to be done. Okay, I'm not going to apologize. Stephen Miller thinks that he's some like big swinging dick because he violated the rights of others, but we're not going to apologize. I believe that we can live in a world where everybody has true freedom and autonomy and to be free from coercion or threats. But as long as these sociopaths control the world, we're going to have a shittier world. And by the way, it's not even a good world for them, right? Like, go travel around American cities, even in the, quote, nice parts. It's not that nice. They have effectively created a rotten country. But I appreciate them saying what it is, because liberal fabulism, liberal lies about how America supports freedom, democracy, whatever the fuck, is nonsense. They say it's about power and it's about what we can get away with. Well, we're not going to let you get away with it. And also, this is kind of a small point, but it is an important point. This is the exact opposite of what America was supposedly founded on. This is some sort of foreign importation. This is not what America is supposed to be about. America was founded on the idea that every human being has inalienable rights by virtue of being a human being. That's the entire justification for the revolution. That's the entire justification for our entire country's existence, is that when a government violates your rights, right to exist ends. Stephen Miller says, oh, the world is just about power and strength. Okay. All right. Bet. This is the argument of the side that lost World War II. The side who had Soviet tanks rolling over their heads.
Iron laws of the world,
but are you saying
since the beginning of time?
But in terms of day-to-day operations in Venezuela, that is acting President Rodriguez, right? It's not some sort of American emissary.
What I'm saying is, we'll keep going here, Jake. So I want to say what I'm saying, and then you'll follow up. But what I'm saying is just one level above that, which is that by definition, we are in charge.
I saw that Trump was moaning and grunting. Haha, I saw that. Thank you for the link.
Because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission. So the United States is in charge. The United States is running the country during this transition period.
If that's true,
obviously that doesn't mean that President Trump is setting the bus fare schedule inside the country. So doesn't mean that President Trump is assigning the K-12 curriculum in the country.
The indictment that the president and the military were acting on from 2020 was of 6 people. 2 of them were seized on Saturday by our special operators. There are 4 other individuals indicted who remain in Venezuela. Is the U.S. demanding that they be turned over? One of them is Maduro's son. One of them is a former government official. One is a current government official. And one of them is the head of Tren de Aragua, as I'm sure you know. Are they going to be turned over if President Trump is, in fact, running Venezuela in the way you describe?
Well, I don't want to. Obviously, we have to balance here, Jake, which I think you more than most understand. We have to balance between, of course, what I can say to you publicly versus very close-hold conversations that might be happening privately. And I know you understand and respect that. I'll answer the question in this way. There might be individuals who are fugitives from American justice that could become part of a future conversation. But it's also true that for government leaders inside of Venezuela, and as the president has said, right, we want an interim government that will respect the interests of the people of Venezuela, that wants a good, peaceful, secure future for Venezuela. So I would just say it this way. For those who may be indicted, the best choice they can possibly make is to be part of a constructive decision-making process for the future of Venezuela. The best decision they can make is...
So basically what Stephen Miller is saying is that all the charges are just fraudulent and made up, and they're just used as a pretense for seizing these people via force. That's what he's saying. He's saying we are just making up charges. They're not really based on anything, just so we can have a pretext to seize people so we can steal their oil. Now, some people will ask, do you see why anarchism is a fucking stupid? Do you get it now? If we're going to stop Stephen Miller, we're going to need militaries that have the ability to stop the U.S. military. That's really the reality. And the U.S. military got millions of people working together. I mean, that's the fucking reality. And you need a centralized force in order to get it done.
Is to cooperate fully and completely with the United States to be part of building this brighter future for Venezuela during this interim period.
On another important topic, the premier of Greenland and the premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon. After that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish prime minister responded to this in an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, "I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says that he wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War." Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now, so I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United
States, but your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation. No, that's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'm not, and I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration. Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out. The United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. So
one last question, Stephen.
Doesn't make any sense.
One last question. The president was very quick to say that the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, opposition leader Machado in Venezuela, doesn't have the support in Venezuela to become the next president or the interim leader. And I wonder where he got that from, given that her cutout, Gonzalez, won the election last year 2 years ago, overwhelmingly, 70% of the vote or something like that. Why does the president think that Machado should not be the next leader? Why does he think she's weak?
First of all Venezuela experts agree. All Venezuela experts agree that it would be absurd and preposterous for us to suddenly fly her into the country and to put her in charge. And the military would follow her and the security forces would follow her. This is not a serious. It's not even a serious question.
So should there be an election?
Let me, if you give me the floor for 30 seconds, let me tell you what we are doing.
By the way, he knows that she's not popular and that the election wasn't rigged. And maybe Maduro wasn't a dictator. I don't call Maduro a dictator. I, as an American, I'm not going to criticize Cuba or Venezuela because our country does horrible shit to it 24/7, trying to starve people to death. And people reacting to that to defend their country, and then for me to go, you're being kind of a dictator right now, is really fucking insane. And it's not acceptable. When America stops coercing those countries, and when America stops attacking those countries, then I will feel comfortable criticizing the internal politics of those countries. But up until my country stops coercing and attacking those countries, what they do to defend themselves, I don't know enough in order to criticize. And it's very weird how Americans are so comfortable calling these countries dictators. Where the fuck do you get off?
The United States, this is sort of foundational. The United States is using its military to secure our interests unapologetically in our hemisphere. We're a superpower, and under President Trump, we are going to conduct ourselves as a superpower. It is absurd that we would allow a nation in our own backyard to become the supplier of resources to our adversaries, but not to us, to hoard weapons from our adversaries, to be able to be positioned as an asset against the United States rather than on behalf of the United States.
Sovereign countries should be able to do what they want to do.
The Monroe Doctrine and the Trump Doctrine is all about securing the national interests of America. For years, we sent our soldiers to die in deserts in the Middle East to try to build them parliaments, to try to build them democracies, to try to give them more oil, to try to give them more resources. The future of the free world, Jake, depends on America being able to assert ourselves and our interests without apology. This whole period that happened after World War II, where the West began apologizing and groveling and begging
I don't even
and
know,
engaging these
honestly,
vast
what you're talking
reparation
about right
schemes.
now.
What I'm talking about, Jake, is the idea, and by the way, you do, I know you love doing that smarmy thing, Jake, and I was hoping to be better than that this time.
I asked you about if there should be an election. I asked you if there would be an election in Venezuela. That's what I asked. I said, why was the president so quick to dismiss Machado? You answered that question. And then I said,
the objective, Jake, is security and stability for the people of Venezuela. With our help and leadership, that country will become more prosperous than it has ever been in its whole history. Venezuelans
but the woman running Venezuela right now is part of the Maduro regime.
There will be conversations, Jake, about all of these guideposts along the way. The reason why I was giving you that speech, which I know you didn't want to hear, is because you're approaching this from the wrong frame. This neoliberal frame that the United States' job is to go around the world and demanding immediate elections to be held everywhere, immediately, all the time, right away. To create these vacuums.
That's not what I think, but you invaded the country. We went into the country and we seized the leader of Venezuela.
Damn straight we did.
And I'm saying,
we're not going to let.
So is the U.S. going to have new elections?
Jake, is that we're not going to let Tim Pot communist dictators send rapists into our country, send drugs into our country, send weapons into our country.
Okay.
And we're not going to let a country fall into the hands of our adversaries. The future of Venezuela, working with America, is going to be so bright and so incredible and so positive, and we'll have a conversation about everything that you raised. But the priority right now, as the president has made clear, is just
like Iraq, just like Afghanistan, just like every other country the United States has intervened with. They've had a really bright future. Libya is doing great right now.
Judicious, thoughtful, careful transition process to secure a great future for Venezuela and to secure a great future for America.
All right.
And let's just take a moment and just acknowledge, Jake, that what we've witnessed under President Trump's leadership this last week is one of the greatest foreign policy and military victories this country has ever had.
Stephen Miller, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
A lot there to discuss. The panel's here.
I mean, what could you even say? What could you even say? Most of you are in this business longer than me. That makes me smarter than you, because look where I am, right? No, it doesn't. But I wish you could explain to me what the hell is going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right public policy.
But they say that when you win the presidency, you lose the midterm. So you're all brilliant people. Most of you are in this business longer than me. That makes me smarter than you, because look where I am, right? No, it doesn't. But I wish you could explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy. They don't. They have horrible policy. They do stick together. They're violent. They're vicious. They're vicious people. But they say that when you win the presidency, you lose the midterm.
I think that one thing that does need to change is that when I say only Republicans support Trump's invasion of Venezuela, I'm not being hyperbolic. YouGov today showed 20 of its 24 sub-audiences are straight up majority against this invasion. The only audiences who support it are right-wing. Do you support the U.S. using military force to invade Venezuela? Oppose 56%. Wow. Wow. Even white people are against it. The only people that are in favor of it are self-described conservatives, Republicans, and Trump voters. And a significant portion of them are against it. Jay, you can't say stuff like that, even though I agree that we need to have some sort of procedure for arresting these people. But I you can't say stuff like that. Like, executions are way too far. I think these people should be prosecuted for the crimes against humanity that they are advocating. Now, when we bring up international law, there's a reason we bring it up. I want to explain why we bring it up, okay? We bring it up because there's something that happened in the world called World War II. And I don't know if you know this, chat, but the United States is not all powerful. It just spends the most money on the military right now. It doesn't mean it would be the country that would win wars against other big countries. It just means that it spends the most right now because it has the interest of going around the world and intervening. But in the situation of a world war, we don't know what the outcome would be. And with nuclear weapons existing, we worry that it could be a thermonuclear exchange, thus, destroying our civilization. And so that's why we talk about international law, because those institutions were set up after World War II to prevent the kind of logic that Stephen Miller has, resulting in another struggle, a world war.
You voted for this president 3 times. Is this what you voted for?
Not only did I vote for the president 3 times, I was one of the few Republicans that stood by him early on when the rest of the Republicans turned their back on him. I also campaigned all over the country for him and attended many of those rallies where the campaign promises were no more foreign wars, no more regime change, and putting the American people first. Caitlin, those are the things that I believe on, stood on in principle, not only in principle, but by actions as well. I never voted to fund Ukraine. I never voted to fund any of the foreign wars, and I worked hard to get rid of foreign aid and funding foreign governments and foreign people. That's what I believe in. However, it is concerning to see what's happening and the direction that the Trump administration is moving in. We can say, thankfully, that Maduro has been arrested. We can say we're happy for the Venezuelan people, but we can also look to all the regime changes before in Iraq and Libya and Syria, and we said the same things for the people of those countries. But then we watch those countries fall into turmoil and civil war, and we watch the rise of ISIS and terrorism, and we watch U.S. troops remain in those countries for a very long time, and many flag-draped coffins come home. And that's what many Americans don't want to see happen. And tonight it is disturbing to see the latest news coming out of Venezuela, where there is chaos and possibly some sort of civil war or chaos and disruption happening. And we care about people, but we care about our country too, Caitlin. And to me, America first is what matters most, and the American people matter most. And I believe the focus should be strong domestic policy to help Americans afford life, afford health care, health insurance, be able to buy a home, an affordable home, and live the American dream. And so I unapologetically support America first. And as an American, it's okay to disagree with the president that I helped get elected, and it's okay to disagree with other Americans. But what's not okay is for our government to put their full focus on foreign countries.
Do you think that Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, and J.D. Vance should be running Venezuela, as the president puts it?
I would like to see our elected president and vice president and his administration running America. I think that's most important for the American people and our interest. And we have real problems here at home. We're nearly $40 trillion in debt. They've done a great job stabilizing inflation that was record high under the Biden administration. They've done a wonderful job securing the border, and I love seeing the crime statistics go down. But I would like to see a continued focus on domestic policy that helps the American people. That's the country that they are supposed to be running, and I hope that the United States of America is the country they stay focused on running.
The White House is arguing they can do both, basically, that they can deal with what's happening in Venezuela and also address those other campaign promises. Do you see it that way if there's not really a clear plan that's been laid out, at least so far, for what happens next in Venezuela?
Again, from an America First standpoint, Caitlin, Venezuela belongs to the Venezuelan people, and they should elect their own government leaders. We have elected our government leaders, the Trump administration, and we've elected them to run America, not to be globalists, not to run other countries, not to pursue regime change and foreign wars. We We very much need our government and our government leaders to focus on the American people and the issues that we care about on Main Street, USA.
It sounds like you think the president is breaking a campaign promise.
I know the campaign promises that I made, Caitlin, and that's America first. And I've stuck with those. I've said no more foreign wars, no regime change. That's why I always voted against it and never voted to fund any of the foreign wars. That's why I'm able to say I don't think this is a good thing. Of course, we want the people of Venezuela to have freedoms, and we want them to have a good, stable government. And of course, Maduro is a bad guy, and administrations in the past, the Biden administration before that, all were putting out bounties on his head. Of course, I can say killing Americans with illegal drugs is bad, and I'm fully against it, and that's why I impeached Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Those were my articles of impeachment that passed the House. So I can have all of those views and at the same time say I very much want our American president and his administration to focus on America first.
You have been very outspoken as a member of Congress. As of tomorrow morning, you're no longer going to be a member of Congress. How do you plan to hold a role if you're no longer in that position of power? What do you think that looks like for you going forward?
Well, thankfully, I get to be an American citizen, just like I was before I became a member of Congress. Before I became a member,
I think the thing that's more important, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene is dumb, and she believed some of the bullshit she was saying, but she's legitimately a stupid piece of shit. The reality is, though, her dropping out is because the average Republican voter just says, what Trump want, I want. From Asmongold down on to the dumbest hillbilly redneck, whatever Trump do is based. There is no thought behind it. They're literally worshiping Donald Trump. Can you imagine liking Donald Trump?
Member of Congress in January of 2021, I
Amazing.
had never held any political position.
Worshiping an 80-year-old obese guy with a hairpiece and a mail-order bride who hates his guts. Who's a fucking best friend with Jeffrey Epstein. That's the guy they're worshiping. That's the guy Asmongold worships. He's a fucking pedophile. Donald Trump is who I meant there. He'll punish you.
Position. I was just a business owner, raised 3.
Checking in on the president. This is the guy they're worshiping, guys.
I want to really, but she gets it. And
he's such a little class clown. Did you see how he lights up when people giggle? Look at the way he loves to perform. He would not have made it in a 2002 high school lunchroom. That I can tell you, chat. He would not have made it in a 2002 high school lunchroom in Pennsylvania. That's for sure.
I want to really, but she gets it. And I want to really,
It looks like he's grabbing 2 goblin dicks. Damn, dude. I just wanted to show you guys this real quick for if there's anybody who's a Baltimore Ravens fan in the chat. If there's anybody who's a Baltimore Ravens fan in the chat, I just wanted to show you guys this real quick.
Up with the catch. Tyler Luke from 44. Snap good. Hold it. The kick is no good. It is wide right. And the Steelers are the champions of the North.
I just wanted to say that if there are any Baltimore Ravens fans in the chat. Oh, we have one.
No! How the fuck did this happen? We were supposed to fucking win.
Tyler Luke, you motherfucker, Tyler Luke. Somebody get Tyler Luke to a fucking massage parlor right now, yo. Go get that motherfucker a massage. I want him off the team.
We were supposed to win.
Fucking Aaron Rodgers, you're fucking old. How did you beat us like that, yo? Aren't you supposed to be in a dark room trying to convince yourself you're not gay? Lamar fucking did it, yo. The NFL is fucking rigged. Roger, get down. If you have any honor, you will replay the second half with Kyle Hamilton. Okay, give us a week for him to recharge his injuries and replay the second half. Fuck. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. We'll rebuild. Next year, fire everybody. and hired Joe Flacco as the coach, GM, and starting quarterback. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll just hire Joe Flacco. We'll just hire Joe Flacco to be the coach and the quarterback.
See, the Steelers just had their way with the Ravens, so he's in the shower in shame. You know, he's trying to wash it off, but it'll never wash off, Savvy. It'll never wash off. It'll be like in all the future NFL films, they'll be showing that kick as a key point of the rivalry for all time. Just like that AFC championship game. That defeat with the Ravens all splayed out and injured. It's gonna be highlights for all time. Ravens coach Harborough set a side football to Netanyahu to BB. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh, we have Israel's back via Always Israel. My dad is primarily a Bengals fan, but his second team is the Ravens. Yeah, the Steelers are DOA at our house. Well, I have a message. I have a message for you and your dad, okay? I have a message for you. Oh, wait, it's a GIF? Where's the sound? Where's the sound? Hold on, we got this. Don't worry.
I'm tired of whooping y'all ass. Y'all make me tired. Who they think gonna beat them
Bengals? I don't get it. It's just dumb football shit, chatter. It's dumb football shit. The Steelers were the number 6 seed in the playoffs that year, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. And they did so by going into Cincinnati and beating the Bengals. And the Bengals have a chant called "Who Day," which is like they're gonna win. Who's gonna beat us? Who day? And so we day. Stav playing a character pretended to be upset. Bro was almost hospitalized with depression and he's trying to play it off. We see you, Stav. Yeah, I know. Bengals have more playoff wins in the last decade than the Steelers, by the way. LMFAO. Oh, wow. Damn. Somebody won a wild card game, chat. We build institutions around random wild card game wins. How about this? Super Bowls. I have watched 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers in it during my life. I've seen them hoist it multiple times. A lot of people saying Steelers players smell. No, that's not true. They're nice. This is a video from a plastic surgeon proving Maduro's hairline is natural. Okay, we're not watching that. Let's get back to the real shit. Making fun of Ohioans is fun, and you know, people from Baltimore. I mean, that's obviously fun. I Show Speed was shocked to learn he can't buy pure diamonds in Botswana because the country is locked into contracts. Even though it produces the most diamonds in the world, Botswana has one of the poorest local diamond markets. Yeah, it all goes to Israel.
What we do. Okay, what if I want to buy these? I want to buy one of these diamonds.
Buy one of the diamonds.
Yeah, who do I talk to?
Who do you have to talk to?
But I can't be a customer. This is my first time in Botswana.
We can make arrangements.
Yeah, I know, but what if I want to buy a rough diamond?
Then maybe you can talk.
Is that part of your contract? Y'all can only sell to those 2 customers.
Do you think they get a good deal? When you're only allowed to sell to 2 people, you think you get a good deal? Is there a good bid, do you think?
These are all natural. So we're selling the natural diamond. These are from the ground. No synthetic, no diamond, no lab work. These are 100.
We have 4 mines.
Fair enough, chat. Fair enough. I guess we can't buy a diamond here. I think maybe. Like a real diamond.
A rough diamond.
Chat, do you know what Israel's #1 export is? Diamonds. You know how many diamond mines there are in Israel? 0. We talked about this the other day, but basically Israel there's an Israeli billionaire that's funding death squads that kill Africans, and he was so bad that even the US put sanctions on him. So it was embarrassing. But don't worry, the Trump administration lifted the sanctions. This is why the Kimberley process is a sham. Israeli diamonds are considered ethical by their standards. There are no Israeli diamonds. The only ethical diamonds are diamonds from China. All right, chat. Why Europe bows to U.S. influence, the owned continent. This is by France 24. Embarrassing. Even their own media is admitting the truth.
Well, reactions to the US attack on Caracas have been somewhat muted, notably from Europe, with most heads of state, including from the EU institutions, saying that they're watching the situation carefully and calling for restraint and for international law to be respected. Well, we can cross now to our EU, our Brussels correspondent, who is currently in Barcelona and who has penned a book about the US relationship with the European Union, The Owned Continent, it is called, and it gives an assessment of Europe's dependence on the United States and describes how Donald Trump has exploited that. However, it also proposes a way out. Dave Keating, lovely to see you. Dave, before we get to your book, I have to start by asking, the EU reacts to the US move in Venezuela. Overall, it seemed somewhat muted.
Yeah, muted and even really giving a stamp of approval to the U.S. operation. No European leader has been willing to criticize the U.S. operation except Pedro Sanchez, the Prime Minister of Spain. He's actually joined in on a separate joint communication from several Latin American countries, including Mexico and Brazil, condemning the operation. But meanwhile, the EU, both EU leaders and national leaders in the EU, have not been willing to criticize it. Some have openly endorsed it. Giorgia Meloni saying of Italy that she thinks it's legitimate. We had President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer of France and the UK seeming to give their stamp of approval by focusing on the positives of the removal of the regime, talking about upholding international law, but not acknowledging that international law was most likely violated already through the U.S. operation. Then we had Germany's Friedrich Merz, who said that the legality of the U.S. operation is complex and he needs time to look into it. That was kind of backed up by Greece's prime minister, also from the center right, who said that now is not the time to be talking about whether or not the U.S. operation was legal. So that has really angered a lot of people across the continent who were looking for a more robust response. And critically, it has angered leaders in South America, notably Brazil's President Lula. And that's bad news for the Mercosur deal, which is still up in the air. That's the free trade agreement between Europe and the South American countries. This now is likely to cause a rift between Brazil and European countries that could affect that deal. It could also impact support for Ukraine. It's thought that the reason that European leaders are being so coy here, that are not coming out to speak up for international law in regards to what the U.S. just did, is because they're worried about Trump completely pulling support for Ukraine more than the U.S. has already pulled already. And that will probably overshadow a meeting tomorrow of the so-called Coalition of the Willing in Paris. That is the countries that are supporting Ukraine. This issue is likely to be hanging over it.
Well, Dave, your book really is being published in a month when once again we're seeing Europe's position in the face of the United States, and really it does look like it is being dominated by that. When you say when it comes to the Ukraine, Europe is constantly looking to try and have a seat even at the table of the negotiations. We've seen with the war on Gaza as well, a very quiet European Union, in particular Europe, no real voice. Tell us a bit more why you think that is.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the number one questions I've been asked by people over the past year. As a journalist, people across Europe have been asking me, why are our leaders continually surrendering to Donald Trump? The book.
Well, the answer is that you don't have leaders. You don't have a democracy. All of the centrist parties, whether they're center right or center left, are puppets of the United States. Far-right government, far-right parties oftentimes ape as if they're anti-U.S. or they want to assert their own sovereignty, but they're not. They're oftentimes connected to U.S. intelligence, and they'll immediately cave to the U.S. as soon as they get legitimacy. The only true parties that are actually skeptical of the United States are on the left. That's the reality. If you want to have an independent Europe, you need to have a left-wing Europe. That's it.
Is trying to explore some of the psychological reasons for that, actually, that America dominates Europeans' daily lives, not just militarily. Europe isn't just militarily dependent on the United States, a subject that is widely being explored now, but it's also economically dependent and culturally dependent. If you turn on a TV or radio in Europe, you are most likely going to encounter an American TV show or an American song. Every day you use an American phone to access American social media. You pay with American credit cards. You watch movies with American streaming services. You are inundated with American culture as a European from the time you're born, and that impacts Europeans psychologically. Notably, it starts to make Europeans almost feel like they live in the United States And that can make it difficult to try to change the thinking about the United States as perhaps an adversary. So now, even as Donald Trump is coming out again with these threats to invade and annex a territory of an EU member state, Greenland, part of Denmark, we're still seeing European leaders just not register, not wanting to acknowledge what their own eyes and ears can see, which is that the United States is threatening Europe.
Because the entire, as I said, the centrist political class is all surrounding American political economy. They're not even really prime ministers or leaders. They're just kind of like local aristocrats. And oftentimes when they leave office, they move to the US. Like, they're not really leaders of those societies.
Because of this psychology, this kind of owned psychology in Europe, we see Europeans just really unable to change their thinking about the United States. They're still thinking about the United States as if it was 10 years ago. So the book is trying to look at the psychological reasons for that, how this developed, tracing how the American dominance in Europe developed, but also looking at ways that through the EU, Europeans could actually lessen the effect of that dominance.
It is quite fascinating to look at the extent to which proposed cultural domination impacting the mentality, and Europeans still having this vision of the American dream and that what is over in the United States is necessarily better than what's in Europe. But does it not also date back to, the world wars and the role that the United States played? Is that not what is lingering in European minds?
Yes, certainly this mostly started from World War II, right after, especially after the Cold War, and the Europe was divided into two different halves, and you had American soldiers and American military bases establishing themselves in Western Europe. But actually, my book traces this back to World War I, when the European film industry was decimated and the American movie companies quickly moved into Europe to fill the vacuum and had established a major dominance in European movie theaters already by the mid-1920s. So really, the cultural dominance, I think, starts a lot earlier than most Europeans realize. I think Europeans are kind of aware that their social media, for instance, now is completely American dominated, but actually this is a phenomenon that goes back decades. And myself, as an American who grew up in the United States and moved to Europe in my 20s, it was quite jarring, actually. And I've had this conversation with a lot of other American expats who have lived in Europe a long time, that it's almost like you didn't leave the United States by moving to Europe because you're so surrounded by American culture at all times.
Now, one thing, and even with that cultural dominance, it's interesting, you note in your book that even when it comes to news, Europeans seem more affected by, the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States than when it's a local Black Lives Matter movements in Brussels or France or elsewhere. And one thing you also highlight is that you feel that Europeans still have a problem of national mindsets as opposed to the federal mindsets that we should, in your opinion, if I've read your book correctly, have when we're part of the European Union.
Well, the Europeans won't ever do that because of the language divisions. So you're never going to see Germans that are in favor of giving like, you can't have unity without fiscal unity. Like, the reason why the United States and China work is because there are transfers from one section of the country to the other section of the country. There are net makers and there are net takers. That's what builds the stability, right? Like, Europe doesn't do that. Right? Europe is not interested in giving money to like the poorer parts of Europe so they could develop more. Germany has no interest in doing that. And so they can't really federate because that would involve transfers from Northern Europe to Southern Europe. And they're just not going to do it. So Europe is never really going to be a world power, at least in the immediate short term.
Yeah, that's also been something really striking to me, just how much news coverage here in Europe is dominated by news from the United States. If you open up a newspaper, you are certainly going to find articles about the United States, probably on the front page, and also in broadcast news. And this leads to a situation where Europeans know more about politics in the United States, certainly than they know about European politics, but in some cases, even more than they know about their own national politics, because they're seeing this saturation of American news coverage, not only in news, but then they're also now getting that reinforced through social media feeds. They're getting actually very little information about European politics, but they're getting inundated by the culture wars from the United States, by the political battles, the political developments. And again, this can lead to an impression among Europeans that they somehow live in the United States, rather than America being a foreign country, that it's somehow a part of the European fabric, an unavoidable part. And that then hinders people from learning about their own European politics, learning about how a united Europe could stand up to the United States, particularly in cases like we've seen over the past couple days. And it makes this kind of passive mindset that allows the United States to really get away with quite a lot in Europe when you look particularly at recent developments.
Well, indeed, and even there's been ones that hit even directly closer to home with, we've seen how European leaders have reacted to Trump's trade tariffs. We've seen them up their defense spending very rapidly when Trump demands. You feel that they maybe went too far, too fast, and you've been explaining perhaps why that. But how can Europe turn things around? I mean, how are leaders still feeling that they have to play up to Trump and not feeling that they can present what is a very sizable economy and not, feel their own weight, their own power in the world?
Yeah, there is a very defeatist attitude in Europe, and the line I always hear, and I've also been hearing the past couple days in terms of how Europeans should respond to the U.S. action in Venezuela.
I mean, the Europeans are the Europeans are as much of a colony as Japan and South Korea. Like, they don't, and Australia. You guys don't have any freedom. You don't have any ability to set your own policies. You are a puppet of the United States of America. And I think, one of the things that concerns me a lot about, a lot of European and Canadian influencers talk a lot about American politics and Australian influencers, but they're not really part of their own politics. How many Canadians do you know that make 100% of their content about American politics? It's like, your country is full of American puppets. Why don't you organize your fellow Canadians to resist the United States? Why don't you organize your European or Australian or Japanese or South Korean or Taiwanese governments to be more skeptical of the United States, more independent? There isn't one country in Europe that could reasonably say they're not a Eurocock, especially now that Finland and Sweden have joined NATO. Maybe Switzerland can say it. Maybe Austria can say it, but not really.
There's nothing we can do. I always hear that from Europeans.
Because we can't get nukes? What are you talking about? France and the UK have nukes. What are you saying? Of course you can get nukes.
Very defeatist attitude, and it's not true. There's a lot of tools that Europe has in its tool belt. There was this so-called nuclear option being developed, pushed by France ahead of that trade deal surrender by President von der Leyen in July, where the EU could have hit back with tariffs against U.S. services in which the EU, Europe, has a trade deficit with the United States, obviously being inundated with American services imports. Also, they had a mechanism that they could have used to combat trade extortion, but our European leaders chose not to use those tools. I mean, this is a single market that is larger than the United States. By purchasing power parity, it is a roughly equal economy to the United States, and yet Europe often behaves as if it's a very small country that has no choice but to follow the diktats of the United States. And that's just not reflective of Europe's actual power, not just economic.
Well, I mean, Europe used to be more powerful, but then they followed the United States diktats ever since the global recession of 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. They basically destroyed their own economies by pursuing neoliberal austerity, and their economies have not grown in 2 decades. They're fucking flat. Like, it's actually insane if you look at it. Like, French GDP chart. I don't want growth rate. I want, like, the GDP. Okay, this is what the Okay, this is what the fuck is trade? This shit. Okay, hold on. Let's get Greek. This will be more fun. Hold on. Okay. Why are we getting nothing but paywall charts now? Okay, these charts are actually dog shit. Hold on. EU GDP chart. Holy fuck. All right, here we go. If you look at, here it is in 2008. It was flat all the way until COVID. Completely flat for almost a decade. And it's now only started to going up again because of high inflation. Like, it's actually embarrassing how the Europeans have just allowed themselves to become captured and powerless.
Economically, but also potentially militarily, if Europe was able to coordinate its national militaries in a way where Europe could act independently and sovereignly in making military actions. Unfortunately, our European leaders have not really been willing to use those tools. And I think there's also guilt here on the people of Europe, who after all are electing those European leaders, and also aren't really thinking about the ways that Europe can exercise power on the world stage.
Okay, Dave Keating. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks very much for your time, Dave Keating. His book, The Owned Continent, is out this month.
World Bank is giving me internal server error. All I know is we have our situation where now...
Greenland, is it next? Here's Trump.
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security, and Denmark is not going to be able to do it.
Tonight, some of America's strongest allies are fighting back against that.
Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must decide the future of Greenland, and only Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark.
Keir Starmer rules the UK, of course. Leaders in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, all NATO countries as well, also supporting Denmark. Out front now, the Danish member of European Parliament, Anders Vistisen. Famously, when all of this started, he told Trump to F off over his threats against Greenland, and maybe that had seemed flip at the time, but now here we are. It's deadly serious. So, Anders, Trump talking about Greenland again, and you heard what he said. He said, we need Greenland. It's so strategic. We need Greenland. And this comes, hours after, he sent 200 Americans into Venezuela, captured the leader, and brought him into New York to serve trial, and now says that Donald Trump, is the one ruling Venezuela. Do you think he's really serious now about Greenland in that context?
I think the two situations are quite different from each other. When we're talking about Greenland, we're not talking about a drug-run dictatorship. We are talking about a NATO-allied country, a NATO territory.
Why are you eating my face, leopard? What the hell is this? This isn't fair. I voted for the leopard eating other people's faces, not mine.
That belongs to a friendly nation that is a very close ally to the USA and have been so for more than 70 years. So, of course, it is appalling, and it is very, frankly, stupid to continue to talk about capturing a NATO country. But we don't see it as very realistic that we have U.S. troops entering into the capital of Nuuk anytime soon, no.
One of Trump's senior aides, though, just a few moments ago, Stephen Miller, spoke out. I don't know if you heard this, Anders. So given what you just said, I just want to play what Stephen Miller said for you.
The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States, the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland.
What's your response to that, Anders?
My response is that Denmark landed on Greenland before anyone ever thought about making this the United States of America. So by that logic, the United States of America should go back to be a colony of the United Kingdom. But I don't see that as a very realistic outcome. And I think again and again we are seeing this administration talking about Greenland with no knowledge about the history of the place, with no knowledge about the fact on the ground. When Denmark sold what is today the U.S. Virgin Islands, the United States signed a treaty with Denmark 100 years ago that the United States of America accepted Danish full control.
I mean, if it were me, if I was a European and I was hearing America threatening a member nation of an alliance and say they want to seize their territory, why are American troops still in your country, UK? Why are American troops still in your countries? Evict American troops from your country. Say, if you say this shit again, we're going to remove American troops from our country. If you're not, then you're occupied already.
The territory of Greenland. So if the United States administration is in doubt who gave us that territory, they can just go back and look into their own records and there see that it is among all the other countries in the world, the United States have said that Greenland belonged to the territory of Greenland belonged to the Kingdom of Denmark.
So tonight, and I think that bringing up that Treaty of the Virgin Islands is fascinating, and I thank you for that. Trump is mocking Denmark's efforts on Greenland security. Here's something specific derogatory that he said. Let me play this.
Your dogshit fascist country engineered our entire continent's politics post World War II through the Marshall Plan and Gladio, and now you talk as if the struggle of European socialists for sovereignty didn't die with bullets bought by American dollars. Your tone is highly annoying American chauvinist. Listen, and I need you to just eat shit. Your countries are American puppets. If you don't like it, do something about it. It's not American chauvinism to say that reality. Now, I've been trying to educate Americans about this fact for over a decade. That's why I'm here and you're in the chat, because people are seeing that I've been right about everything I've been saying since I started this stream. It's all coming to fruition exactly as I said it would. My explanations and understanding and of the world are accurate. And so when I tell Europeans you're a puppet of the United States, you are. Now, it doesn't mean I'm happy with my American politics, but I'm trying to build shit. Every time I do, I have non-Americans saying how the American left doesn't matter and you shouldn't do anything with it, and you should instead tweet about how you are a Maoist third worldist or whatever the fuck, okay? I'm the one trying to create an American politics that stops puppeting Europe. But I need you guys to also do your part and start standing up to the United States. If you stand up to the United States, it'll help my project of an isolationist America focused on its own internal development, not interfering with the rest of the world. I can only get that if you help me get consequences for what Donald Trump is doing by rendering liberal centrism non-viable. If you don't do your part, if you don't push back, if you don't organize in your home countries, Europe doesn't push for left-wing politicians like Jean-Luc Mélenchon, then we're fucking cooked. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller say they want to seize Greenland by force. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to take it?
You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
One more dog sled. And then Katie Miller, who obviously is married to Stephen Miller, whom I just played to you, posted that map of Greenland on social media in the colors of the American flag right after the Venezuela military operation, and the word...
It's so funny how Europeans come in here and they try to talk tough to me. These are the people that you need to be talking tough to. But yet your leaders are silent.
She wrote was soon. So, you know, when Trump...
I mean, surely the U.S. knows that insurgency in the Balkans would make Vietnam look like laser tag. Get the fucking Vietnam out of your mouth. How dare you? Get your fucking Vietnam out of your mouth. They destroyed France first. Get the fuck out of here. Show some respect for the goats. It's so embarrassing when people are like, we would make Vietnam look like... No, you wouldn't. No, you fucking wouldn't. How dare you compare yourself to Vietnam? What have you done to earn that right? Nothing. Quiet.
Makes a comment like they added one more dog.
Europeans are getting mocked by Donald Trump. That's the reality. What are you going to do about it?
Sled, and they thought that was a great idea. And she posts that picture. Obviously, this is insulting, but I guess the real question, Anders, is what can Denmark do about it?
We already decided to ramp up military spending in the Arctic region significantly, many billions of Danish crowns. But let's be frank, what have Americans done? They have closed over 30 bases in Greenland because they didn't find it military significant to be there, to the point where there is only one American base left. So if Trump thinks that a Danish security in Greenland is ridiculous, it just goes to the point that America doesn't care about the Arctic region because they decided unilaterally to draw back from Greenland to the point where their presence in Greenland is almost non-existent. So to taunt the Danish special forces who protects Greenland is very easy, but I would like to see how many American soldiers who can cope with these Arctic temperatures and this very harsh environment. I don't think it's something that you get many soldiers to do from the American continent.
Anders, thank you very much. It's good to talk to you again in the Danish Parliament. Thank you.
A number of leaders are denouncing the notion of a Greenland takeover.
Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must decide the future of Greenland, and only Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark.
And the people of Greenland don't appear to be enjoying all this new attention from the US. Danes are also offended by the White House remark.
It's absurd, and I think he's the archetype of greed, and we need to push back and let him know that this is not this is not for him. I think it's crazy. I think it's something that just seems totally unreasonable from the U.S. side, and I'm not sure why they think that they can just start going around and buying other people's land from them or taking other people's land. In the beginning, everyone kind of chuckled and laughed and thought it was a silly proposal and nothing would come of it, but it's good that we're taking it more seriously now.
Greenland's Prime Minister calls President Trump's threats unacceptable and disrespectful, and the Danish Prime Minister warned that a US attack on Greenland would end the NATO military alliance. Here's CNN's Matt.
The issue of Greenland seems to be re-emerging as a serious point of contention between the US and its traditional European allies, most of all Denmark, which retains sovereignty over the vast Arctic territory. We were actually there back in October when the Danes staged a show of military force, which they officially said was meant to deter Russian and Chinese military threats, but which Danish military officials privately told me were designed to show President Trump just how seriously they took Greenland's security, after his repeated threats to take it over. But now, after the extraordinary events in Venezuela and yet more incendiary remarks about Greenland, the Danish Prime Minister has appeared on national television saying she had already, quote, made it very clear where the Kingdom of Denmark stands, and that Greenland has repeatedly said that it doesn't want to be part of the United States. She also warned of the consequences of US military action to seize Greenland.
If you want the United States out of your country, you got to do this.
Personally, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that the United States of America is being humiliated and is leaving an area that we had come to defend. And we've been defeated. Personally, I'm embarrassed.
All righty, chat. Vio has brought me something. What is it? Taro rolls. Where the hell did we get taro rolls? They're like little flaky rolls. Okay, you did not make these. Nice, thank you, Vio. Anyway, chat.
Personally, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that the United States of America is being humiliated and is leaving an area that we had come to defend. We've been defeated. Personally, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that...
Sorry, I need to watch that over and over again.
President Trump has not ruled out.
First of all, I think you have to take the U.S. president seriously when he says he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, everything stops, including our NATO and thus the security that has been provided since the end of World War II.
Well, that is a clear warning about the potential of this issue of Greenland, which is in a strategic location and does have significant natural resources, to fracture the Western military alliance if this pressure from Washington escalates further. Matthew Chance.
The Venezuelan vice president has been sworn in.
Less than 72 hours after the capture of President Nicolás Maduro, Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as Venezuela's interim president by her brother Jorge Rodriguez, the head of the government-controlled National Assembly, surrounded by senior figures of the Chavista leadership.
I come with sorrow for the kidnapping of two heroes who are being held hostage in the United States of America, President Nicolás Maduro and the First Lady of this country, Celia Flores. I come with sorrow, but I must say that I also come with honor to swear on behalf of all of Venezuela.
A 56-year-old daughter of a Marxist activist, Rodriguez has been a party loyalist since the early years of the Bolivarian Revolution. She is seen as a pragmatist with deep knowledge of the economy and Venezuela's oil sector. Just a day before her swearing in, Rodriguez struck a conciliatory tone, signaling openness to cooperate with the United States, a sharp contrast to the rhetoric heard inside the National Assembly on Monday. Lawmakers there condemned the U.S. action as a fascist act of Yankee imperialism, and Nicolás Maduro's son delivered an emotional show of loyalty.
They may have kidnapped Nicolas and Celia, but they did not kidnap the conscience of a people who have decided to be free. To you, Dulcie, I offer my unconditional support in the difficult task that lies ahead. You can count on me. You can count on my family. You can count on our determination to take the right steps in facing this responsibility that now falls to you.
Outside the National Assembly, government supporters rallied for a second day, demanding Maduro's release. Elsewhere, Caracas remained largely quiet, with some shops cautiously opening. But concerns are growing over a potential crackdown. Venezuela's Journalists Union says at least 14 reporters were detained near the National Assembly, as authorities ordered police to pursue anyone accused of supporting what the government calls the U.S. armed attack. Delcy Rodriguez now faces a narrow path forward, reassuring a hardline base at home while trying to avoid steps that could provoke a harsher response from Washington. How she manages this balancing act might decide what comes next for Venezuela. Alessandra Pietri, Al Jazeera, Cucuta.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.
So are Europeans starting to wake up, chap?
You have new reporting on designs on Greenland.
Yeah, we remember early on in this Trump term, there was talk of like seizing Greenland, which of course we should note is considered part of Denmark. The president and his team had sort of let it go over the last few months, but in the wake of the Venezuela operation, it is very much in the forefront. Active discussions in the White House, and again, preliminary stages. They haven't settled on anything yet. But whether it's to try to trigger a vote there in Greenland or try to put cash payments to see if they buy Greenland or suggest to citizens there that they should, want to become American. And even the outside shot of military force, Greenland is very much back in play here as President Trump and his team look at their sphere of influence in the Western Hemisphere. And that's created a real crisis in Europe.
Is Greenland really strategic? I'm going to explain something. Yes.
Particularly in NATO. And we have a pretty remarkable joint statement on Greenland this morning. It was co-written by leaders of France, Germany, Poland, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Denmark. It reads in part this way. NATO has made clear that the Arctic region is a priority, and European allies are stepping up. Security in the Arctic must be achieved collectively in conjunction with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders.
Except you haven't defended that in Venezuela. So how can you say that the borders are inviolable if you're not defending it when the United States attacks Venezuela with no Security Council resolution, no legitimate justification? Now you want to respect borders all of a sudden.
These are universal principles, and we will not stop defending them. The United States is an essential partner in this endeavor.
You didn't defend them when Iran was attacked. You didn't defend them when Venezuela was attacked. What do you mean? These are principles. What principles?
Belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland, and them only, to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. So, David French, I feel like this is a breathtaking statement.
Yeah.
Let's just reiterate, the president and his teams are interested in Greenland, are for its minerals, for its strategic location. There's a lot of shipping routes there. China and Russia have both tried to make inroads into the Arctic, so there's defense purposes. Denmark has said if the U.S. simply wants to build a new base or a radar installation, just ask. We'll say yes. They're not fighting that. They're simply saying, but hey, you can't have it entirely. And the fact that these nations would think that this moment,
pathetic appeasers,
calls for this statement, calling out the U.S. repeatedly by name,
Eurocucks,
shows that they think that if the U.S.
My favorite thing is that Europe just follows around whatever we say or do. Isn't that kind of amazing, chat? How Europe just follows us around and does whatever we say or do. And all these Europeans for years, they were like, that would never happen in Europe. That would never happen in Europe. And their dogs, servile little dogs, ruled by Donald Trump. They were laughing at us.
Were to move on Greenland, it could potentially shatter the NATO alliance.
I mean, let's just be super clear here. any designs that Trump has on Greenland are not about national security for the very reason you just outlined. Our designs on Greenland are actually threatening our national security because they threaten our most important alliance with many of the most powerful nations in the world. And these are nations that, as much as the Trump administration likes to denigrate Europe and try to cast it aside, these are still nations that have real economic strength. They have real military strength. We depend on them to a great deal for our own national security. So fracturing our most important alliance would not be in America's national interest. What this is about really is Trump's own vision of what national greatness means for him. And it's about expanding territory. It's about dominating people around. And that has never been the key, truly, of American power. American power has always been at its best when it's been cooperative, when our alliances are cooperative. This is one of our key advantages over the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union dominated. We cooperated. And that created a real dynamic pulling people towards us and repelling people from the Soviet Union in the Cold War. And here we are acting like we are entitled to dominate. This is not about our national security. One of the problems with nationalism is it almost always devolves into militarism because it's through military achievement and territorial expansion that nationalists feel like they've expanded the majesty and greatness of the nation. But make no mistake, if we annex Greenland, if we engage in an act that threatens the very existence of NATO, we are harming our national security for generations for the ego of the Trump administration. It would be a terrible turn of events.
So, Doug Brinkley, to that point there, is this a moment where Republicans should put some checks on the president's foreign policy, the loss of soft power, the potential misuse of hard power? I'm thinking of my dad, all these global relationships shattered, the support of NATO just washing away. If that
would be such a good thing for humanity. It's unbelievable how good that would be for humanity. The American boot heel on Africa, on Latin America, on Asia being lifted. It would be the fastest period of economic prosperity and growth in human history if the American and Western imperialism could be contained.
I mean, that's a real thing at this point. They don't hold the president accountable on some of these things. Is it the world that's going to end up holding the United States accountable, and it won't be pretty?
I don't think the Republicans are going to hold him enough accountable, but I do think, as we just saw, the European NATO allies will. I think it's a head fake, Greenland, in the sense that Donald Trump likes to talk about it. He sees it. He wants the real estate. I would keep my eyes on the Panama Canal zone, where I was about 9 months ago, and then look at Cuba. When buried in a lot of the story of Venezuela is about 32 Cubans that were killed that were there. I once went to Venezuela to interview Hugo Chavez, actually for CBS, and all Chavez wanted to talk about is every day he sent a letter to Cuba, and that Castro and him had this correspondence, Chavez, and the amount of the intelligence that Venezuela gets from Cuba added to that Mark Rubio's animus towards Cuba. And then in the Panama, I don't think they're going to invade Panama, but the canal zone, they're going to go, I believe, is the one place U.S. troops may go to fortify to protect the canal.
It's not invading. We're just sending U.S. troops to fortify in a foreign country.
Zone. And as a way to do it, tell China, don't mess with this is our canal. Because Trump's long, he's learning again, Theodore Roosevelt and the Panama Canal and Taft and Wilson. But the Jimmy Carter's deal, he's always felt of the Panama Canal Treaty was the worst real estate, dumbest deal ever. And so he's, I think, going to see that as the canal zone as a linchpin.
Author and presidential historian Douglas Brinkley, thank you so much. And opinion columnist for the New York Times, David French, thank you as well. His new piece is available online right now.
And I know it's got nothing to do with US security or fears about China and Russia, both of whom Donald Trump looks up to like a little brother or a small boy looking up to the biggest bully in the history of the school. His designs upon Greenland are entirely corrupt and self-interested, just as his designs upon Venezuela are, in my humble opinion. So how does his dream come true, and how do the rest of us stop it? Let's start with Michael, who's in Greenwich. Michael, what would you like to say?
Well, I think, I'm very concerned. And first of all, I think the way that Trump could make this all come to pass is just the U.S. already has a base in Greenland at Bidufik on the northwest coast. You just expand that exponentially. You just move in troops, and they're already on the coast. You bring in naval assets, and then say, well, it's done. They don't have to invade; they're already there. They don't have to land.
So the first thing they would do then is take down the Dannebrog, the Danish national flag, which must be flown at the base at all times to recognise that the base is on Danish territory.
And then NATO at this point is for most purposes, defunct, since the U.S. is no longer reliable. So then Denmark can appeal to the other European powers, but realizing that there are 100,000 U.S. troops based in Europe, including a fairly large, about 10,000 here in the U.K. So you say, okay, they already occupy a large part of Europe and have military assets here.
I know you don't. I know you share our concerns, but you're making it sound worryingly feasible.
Well, I think it is, and what bothers me is that no one, though you have, so few people have taken this seriously. No one should be surprised.
Well, in terms of media, I'm not here to speak for anybody else, but they can't take it seriously without admitting that they've been absolutely horribly wrong about Trump from the very, very beginning. So the more that his critics are proved right, the more people who used phrases like Trump derangement syndrome as a pejorative, or write Daily Mail columns even today about how Keir Starmer should be more like Trump, the more they are held hostage by their own ridiculousness, ignorance and treachery, really. So I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. It's gratifying to see it on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. It's gratifying to hear the UK Prime Minister talk about it at all, acknowledge the urgency and the importance of the question. But what worries me is that the relatively casual nature of your description, and that they are already there at Bidufik. They are obviously militarily supported across Europe by their own troops, by their own forces, all of which leads to one inevitable question, which is, well, two inevitable questions. What does pushback look like, and when would it start? At what point? I mean, let's say, because at the moment, as I say, the Danish flag flaps alongside the Stars and Stripes at this base in Denmark. If they were, you could focus a camera on it, and they were to lower the Danish half of that marriage, does NATO do something then? What would pushback look like, and when would it actually happen?
My other concern is that as the Danish flag goes down, Russia moves in the Baltics and takes one small town in Estonia as a challenge. And then Europe is faced with attempting to defend, at least ostensibly, a NATO ally against Russia. Or do they take on the United States? And they're already faced with the potential of a two-front war. The United States, in Greenland, and in all of
the idea that the Europeans would ever fire a shot at America is comical. The United States could easily take Greenland. Trump is not wrong. See, all that happened is that because we're entering a world of eco-fascism, where the climate change being allowed to rage amok is changing the climate and causing some resources to become available that were previously not available, and other resources to become unusable and uninhabitable. We don't have to have that little liberal fancy velvet glove over the iron fist. We take off the velvet glove, and Europeans are so far away from asserting their own interests or protecting themselves or fighting for their own people. Your entire elite is captured by Wall Street. Where the fuck's Wall Street? New York City. You're not going to fight the United States. You don't know how. You couldn't. Your entire militaries are based on the United States and dependent on the United States. You don't have logistic capability. The bullet in your gun is a standard that the United States picked. You're not able to fight the United States. What the fuck are you talking about? Fight a two-front war.
Their bases in Europe, and a Russia that is being encouraged by the U.S. to act. And so I think there's a real serious
And that takes us back. I don't know if you were listening at 10 o'clock. That takes us back to the scenario outlined by Yuval Noah Harari in April of last year, when he talked about a world of rival fortresses in which the United Kingdom would belong in none. And just on that question of the US incremental annexation of Greenland, they do that with numbers, with boots on the ground, arguably without a single shot being fired, and then they start digging stuff up and helping themselves to it, because that's the point of the whole process.
Well, that's the point. And again, this all could be done incrementally. And I think the challenge for the UK is, what position do they take? And my fear is that they'll say, well, we'll be neutral, because you've got, in a sense, a third column here, which is saying Russia good, NATO bad. Who are more than willing to celebrate any success of Donald Trump.
Our opinion polls are currently led by a man who's a lot closer to Russia than he is to NATO.
Well, you kind of wonder who's financed parts of that. But anyway,
we know who financed his leader in Wales, and we know who financed his close friend and protege Nathan Gill. That was a Kremlin stooge, getting him to parrot Kremlin talking points. But you're right, we do wonder who finances the rest of that bizarre political project. And I mean, neutrality notwithstanding, what would, internationally speaking, what does NATO look like without American leadership, or without? I mean, I don't know who breaks the glass to sound the alarm. Do you see what I mean?
Well, it should have been broken a year ago.
I know that.
But I think I think it really will come down to, what are people willing to sacrifice and what are they willing to risk? I mean, I still think as long as...
And the answer to that is nothing. Liberalism is toast. Nobody's willing to fight for this shit. No one's willing to fight or die for these things, these institutions, these countries. They're not willing to sacrifice 50 cents on a dozen eggs, let alone die. So the answer is, Greenland is American already. Might as well hand it over. It'll be less embarrassing. It'll be less embarrassing. Get the U.S. to give you $30 billion or whatever. That's $1 million a person. Chatter said that. It's less embarrassing. Taking the money, pretend it was consensual, go right back to being an American lapdog and puppet.
You said this earlier in the show. As long as money is everything, as long as growth at any cost, as long as we're more concerned about, the cost of living than we are democracy or freedom or any of those more abstract, at least ostensibly abstract. I don't think they're abstract at all.
No, but I take your point.
Those concerns, then we're going to say, well, we've got to keep trade going, and okay, it's better. We don't really want to have to face tariffs, and we're not really in a position, to do much about the U.S. bases in Lake and Heath and Mildenhall anyway. And so, it will be a supine Europe. I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but unless people are willing to say, well, as Ben Franklin said, we all hang together, they hang us all separately.
That's beautifully put. I was going to quote Kissinger back at you, but it would feel inappropriate in the circumstances. Thank you, Michael. And I mean, obviously, we all hope you're wrong, but that grasp of the possibility is quite chilling. And it leads inevitably, inexorably, to the second question that we're asking this hour, which is, what would pushback look like? And of course, where is it going to come from? Is it going to come from Ursula von der Leyen? Does the European Union exist in that space? We were talking about defending Ukraine, creating a necessity. The awfulness of Donald Trump, the dilution of NATO, and the vulnerability of Ukraine, creating the necessity for more European military. Germany in the post-war unprecedented position of increasing.
Well, back from Atrioch's right-wing algo chasing, check the comments. The great journalism wins. I ended Tim Walz. Walz gave up when he saw he lost the big A. He did massively boost this fake story. It did real damage, even if he didn't mean it to. Because Atrioch is not a real person. He is a algo. He wants to make money. And he's just Destiny's replacement. That's it. That's it. He's Destiny's replacement. He doesn't believe in a goddamn thing. Neither did Destiny.
Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, thanks so much for joining us live in the studio this morning. Does the British government support what the US has done?
Well, I don't think anyone in Venezuela seems to be sad about the idea that President Maduro is not in office anymore. The UK,
that's just, how the fuck do you know that? You're just saying shit.
The United States and many of our European allies didn't.
This video has 1.3 million views. How Asmongold was moved to clean his stream room for the health inspector in order to not go to federal prison on a 10-year sentence for hazardous waste leaking into the Texas water supply. Don't worry, we're going to have plenty more to say about Asmongold.
The legitimacy of the last election in Venezuela. Indeed, the UK government sanctioned President Maduro himself not long ago. But given what's happened in the last 24, 48 hours, the important question now is ensuring a peaceful transition so that a new president of Venezuela can be elected democratically with the consent of the people of Venezuela, and anything that we can do as a third country in respect of that, we're happy to do so.
But do we support it?
Well, the idea that President Maduro is no longer the president of Venezuela, yes, we always thought it was illegitimate.
So we support the outcome. Do we support the means?
Well, the means is unconventional. There's no denying that. It's for the American administration.
By the way, this is supposed to be the left in the UK. Like, did you cover Asmon's liberal white women are killing the country take yet? What's really killing the country is the fact that people like Asmongold are not ripped out of their homes and sent to an insane asylum. I'm dead serious. Asmongold has senile squalor syndrome. He doesn't bathe. He doesn't leave his house. He's calling for violence. The guy needs to be in a mental institution. Let's just be honest. And our country doesn't have the facilities. And so people roam around mentally ill, causing harm. Liberal white women are the people that want those institutions to be funded so we could give people like Asmongold the help he needs. And he desperately needs it. Like, that's honestly, honest to God, the truth. Meanwhile, people like him are destroying the country. You think cutting school funding is going to make America smarter? You think allowing companies to put pollution into the air that cause brain damage like lead and arsenic and particulates, that's going to make us smarter? You think landlords not having to clean up a lead paint and asbestos is going to make us healthier?
To explain the legal basis for having done it.
Sure, but do we support it?
Well, it doesn't matter one way or another because it's happened and we were not involved.
Surely it matters. We're a UN Security Council permanent member. Surely it matters what we think. Do we support it or not?
Well, the UN Security Council is going to meet this week, and the American administration will have to set out the legal basis for the operation.
Are you saying that your own government's view about this matter doesn't matter?
No, I'm saying that we need to see the legal basis for the operation that the Americans undertook. They've not published that detail yet. I'm assuming they will do at the UN Security Council this
week. Would the British government do this?
Would we do...
Yeah. Would we do what they've done? Would we remove a foreign leader in that way?
It seems unlikely, but we don't know the legal basis for the operation. And as I say, until we've seen the detail of that...
Presents, thank you for the 25 gifties. Chat, if you enjoy this content, please consider supporting it by subscribing at Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you've got the ability to subscribe to this stream for absolutely nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. So if you enjoy the stream, use those Amazon Primes. Remember, chat, we are dangerously close to 8,000. Oh, never mind. We're not. Womp womp. We got so close, chat. So close to 8,000. Vexandra, thank you for the 5 tier 1s. I appreciate you, chat. We have a hype train going on. The top sub gifter and the top bit donor get the hype train conductor badge, which is a gold locomotive next to your name that you get to keep. You also get a hype chest. And if we were to hit level 111, we would get the Should I Celebrate emote. For level 111, I think a level 111 would only take around 20,000 subs or something. I don't remember. I think it might be more than that. How many, what is level 111? How many subs would that be? It's like, why is this being advertised in every hype train on the entire website? Like level 111, like shut the fuck up, Twitch. Like, come on. Endless Mike 47, thank you for paying for the gifted sub by gifting yourself.
We can't really speculate.
President Trump says the US will run Venezuela. Do we support that?
As we've said, as I've just said, there should be a democratically elected president of Venezuela that commands the support of the people of Venezuela. It's a democratic country, has the basis in democracy. And
when asked last night who would be running Venezuela, Trump said, the men behind me, members of his cabinet. Now, as a politician dedicated to the rule of law, as you said, does that make you feel at all uncomfortable?
Well, we're not really clear yet on the detail of what President Trump...
Dread to Max, I give it the 10 tier ones. Look at these. Look at this labor politician, chat. Look at this sniveling, docile worm for the American boot. Kiss my feet. I'm an American.
Meant by that, I understand this morning.
It's not a conspiracy. I'm a human. Like, all right, who do I need to ban? Who's getting banned? I. Listen, I will unban you, but I want you to understand something. If you harass people when they support streams on the left, I'm going to permanent ban you, and I'm going to get you banned from every single stream. You fucking dumb piece of shit. Fuck you. I will take your name around, and I will get you banned in every single left-wing stream if you bother people who support this channel or any other left-wing channel. Shut the fuck up. Why not ban? Because they apologized right before I was clicking the ban button.
That the courts in Venezuela have appointed an interim president and that the administration in Venezuela continues to operate. So I can't speculate about what President Trump meant. Only he and his administration can answer those questions. But as I say...
you can say whether you think that on an interim basis, we think it's a good idea that President Trump runs Venezuela.
Sure, all I'm saying is that all I've seen...
How do I feel about Maple Takes and Struggle 4? They seem like nice guys. I'm different in that I don't like to be officious in people's channels. You know, I don't like to go in there and like try to use my clout to get smaller streamers to kiss my ass and like create a little bubble of smaller streamers whose ambition incentivizes them to kiss my ass. I try to treat people as equals. Now on this website, that is not the way you should do it. The way you should do it is you should dangle your clout over people's heads in order to manipulate them into like being your little puppet. I don't do that. So they seem pretty cool, and they seem to have pretty good takes.
On an interim basis, that an interim president has been appointed.
Wait, what? You don't want people orbiting me? I don't have a problem with people that want to be here because they like me and what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like I want to support people like that, but I'm not going to go around. Like there's some people who insert themselves into anytime someone is like starting to surge on Twitch. You'll see somebody cosplaying fucking Gambit trying to like insert themselves into their community, and it's very fucking weird.
Venezuela by the Venezuelan courts.
And you have no view whatsoever about whether what he's done and what he's proposing to do is legal. You haven't thought about it.
It's not for me to come to a legal judgment.
No, but you've got lots of lawyers. You've got thousands of lawyers working for the government who could.
That will inform the Foreign Secretary's views at the UN Security Council once the detail has been seen. But
is that assessment being made currently?
Well, of course, the British government will be at the UN Security Council, so it'll have to take a view having seen...
Will you publish that legal advice?
We don't routinely publish legal advice because
but this is important. But so would you give an indication of it?
That's not a decision for me, but we don't normally publish legal advice as a matter of precedent. But of course, if the UN Security Council meets this week, we'll consider that detail when it's published.
Let's imagine that President Putin had kidnapped President Zelensky and his wife and taken them to Moscow. And President Putin said that he's done that to protect the national security interests of Russia. If I was sitting here talking to you and asking whether you thought that was a good idea and whether that was legal, would you be saying to me, well, it's up to the Russian government to produce that legal basis?
Any operation from any sovereign state that recognises international law, I'm not sure that Russia does in these circumstances, but if they do, they have to set out the legal basis for any decisions that they take.
So Russia could do that, and you would just wait for them to produce the legal text?
No, I'm not answering a...
Cuba stream when? Oh, I'd love to go to Cuba.
Hypothetical question. What Russia's done in Ukraine is clearly illegal, in the same way that settlements in the West Bank by Israeli settlers are clearly illegal, but they're clearly illegal because they've been judged to be illegal by international courts.
I don't remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, many British politicians, yourself or others included, coming out and saying, well, let's wait a while for lawyers to produce a legal basis. You just said it. You just said it was illegal. So why can't you do that here? Because virtually every legal commentary I've seen this morning has said it is clearly illegal.
So I think the circumstances were different. President Putin undertook a more traditional invasion war into Ukraine. The Americans are saying this was a law enforcement measure.
Okay, so if I said that I think Keir Starmer is a criminal and I got him indicted in Los Angeles County and I went and kidnapped him out of London and brought him back to LA, you would go, well, it is a law enforcement matter. It's a law enforcement matter. They've only killed 80 innocent civilians. It's law enforcement. Tut tut. Do you see what I'm talking about, chat? Earlier, I said the European political class on the center right and the center left are nothing but American lapdogs. Do you understand the level of how correct I was? And when that European got mad and they brought up Gladio and they brought up American interference, that was invited into your country by the political class. And the only people fighting against it were people like me. So if you want something to change, you need to start pushing for politicians that are not like this.
Kidnapped, Chief Secretary, they've kidnapped the guy. They've literally abducted him. They've taken him to a New York court. They're publishing pictures. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nasty, horrible, brutal dictator. No one's weeping for him. But the precedent is clear. They are literally putting out pictures of the guy on this helicopter.
Brutal dictator, really? We just throw shit in there, and it's just like, how many people have been executed for assisting the Americans? I mean, a brutal dictator would be going around and they would be executing people, right? That regime would be going around grabbing people off the streets and torturing them and figuring out who did it and executing people in mass. Meanwhile, you have reporters walking around talking to people in Caracas. Like, what are we kidding? Who are we kidding?
Blindfolded.
Mike, do you feel like we're inching closer to a world conflict? Inching? United States of America is openly saying that imperialism part 2 has begun and they're going to take territory and oil from countries. What do you mean? World conflict building. Inching. You mean sprinting at full speed?
And you're saying that could be fine. Might be.
All I'm saying is we can't answer those questions yet because they've not published the legal basis. You've not seen it. I've not seen it. Well, they'll have to make submissions to the UN Security Council.
We've heard it from President Trump, Chief Secretary. He thinks that Mike is right. The fact that America can do it means they should do it. And indeed, he's saying quite openly that if other countries get in his way, he'll do the same to them. And you're not saying that makes you uncomfortable or worried or disturbed. You think it's just, let's just wait and see?
We want the rules-based order to work. Of course we do. But look, this isn't just the position of the UK government. This is the position of other European countries too. Germany has been saying the same as the United Kingdom.
He made a direct threat against Colombia. If the U.S. annexes Greenland, we must confiscate all U.S. bases in Europe, said Austria's NATO Enlargement Committee Chairman Bellinger. The funniest thing about this is this guy doesn't live in NATO. This guy lives in a non-NATO country, which is the funniest part.
All I'm saying is we need the time over the next few days of this week to engage with our American counterparts for them to publish the legal basis of the operation for the UN Security Council.
Would you urge the United States government not to abduct any other foreign leaders?
Look, I'm not going to answer hypothetical questions.
You won't urge the United States government not to abduct other foreign leaders?
We think the rules-based order matters and that people should comply with international law. When an operation like this
is... You're not making an assessment as to whether or not you think it has complied with international law.
Because it's for the Americans to set out the basis of the legal basis on which they did the operation, and then for international courts or the UN Security Council to take a view. I'm not trying to dodge the question.
The United States of America is on the Security Council as a permanent member, which means it has veto power. So the United States of America is sitting in judgment of itself, and if it doesn't like the judgment, it could just veto it. So what are you even saying? You're just saying blathering. This dude led the Labor Friends of Israel, by the way. Being friendly to Israel is just another way of saying you're an American puppet. Because Israel is an American puppet. It's
What I'm saying is this is the way the rules-based order works. It's not for an individual state to judge international law. It's for the international courts to do so.
In order for a rules-based order to work, surely it's important on those who believe in the rules-based order to point to people who break the rules-based order and say, you've broken it, not just to dodge it because they're friends of ours.
For sure, but we're not the international court. We're the UK government.
No,
the international court
we're supposed
exists.
to be an important country.
Yeah, we are, and we're.
You don't sound like an important country. You don't sound like you're speaking for an important country, Chief Secretary. You sound like you're speaking on behalf of a supplicant country who's afraid of a bigger country.
I disagree with that assessment. We are following the proper process that any government would follow.
If this were Russia, if this were China, if this was anywhere else in the world, we would be the first out the traps, first out the gate, saying this is disgraceful. We condemn it. You know that. I know that.
As I say, we need to see the legal basis for the operation that was undertaken and what President Trump meant by his comments yesterday in terms of the administration.
The wife of Stephen Miller, the President's Deputy Chief of Staff, has tweeted a map of Greenland, you may have seen this, covered with an American flag saying that they're next, saying soon, in capital letters. Would you urge the United States not to invade Greenland?
Of course, Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It is a sovereign state in its own right, and the rules-based order and international law is very, very clear. All I'm saying is...
Would you urge them not to abduct the leader of Greenland?
Of course, but all I'm saying is that the Americans' commentary so far has been that this was a law enforcement measure against President Maduro.
They've also said it was about oil.
Well, the action that they've said so far was about law enforcement, but we've not seen any. Well, we've not seen any more detail about the law enforcement rationale for their operation, and that's what the American administration needs to publish.
There's going to be a vote of censure clearly in the United Nations. How are we going to vote in that motion?
So we've got to see what the motion says. We've got to see what the American explanation is.
Are there circumstances in which we could vote against America?
I don't know. I've not seen the basis of their legal argument, and I've not seen the motion. Of course,
But if we don't find those things satisfactory, could we vote against the United States?
Well, Britain is a sovereign state, a sovereign member of the UN Security Council. It reserves the right to vote in any which way it wants to. All I'm saying is I can't prejudge a motion that's not been written on a legal basis I've not seen. But the Foreign Office and our representatives in the United Nations will be doing that work over the coming days.
Do you think that Donald Trump is interested in international law?
I mean, he has made very clear that he's interested in trying to resolve peace in Africa and other places around the world.
Do you think he's committed to international law as a concept?
You'd have to ask him the question. I mean, the United.
You. Well, I'd love to ask him.
Well, I don't speak on behalf of President Trump, as you will appreciate. I don't.
Well, President Putin's clearly not interested in international law. Would you agree with that?
Well, because he's unleashed an unconventional illegal war in Ukraine.
And President Trump has abducted, as you yourself say, in a completely unconventional, unprecedented way, has abducted a foreign leader. So given everything we know, and given that he's threatening other countries with the same, and given his record in other areas as well, would you say that he's very interested in international law? And I think he would probably say he's not. I'm just interested in what you think.
As I say, I'm not going to try and be a spokesperson for President Trump. I neither wish to do that or will do it. I speak on behalf of the UK government.
Do you think America continues to be a dependable ally?
Our relationship with the United States on economic and security and defence matters is really important to us. You know, I sit in.
Do they listen to us about anything?
Yes, I sit in number 10 in the Cabinet Office. Our intelligence relationship, the work that we do day in, day out,
didn't even tell us about this, though, did they?
The UK is really important. And continues to be important. They didn't engage us on this issue because we were not involved in it. We were not operationally involved in any way. This was a unilateral action of the United States of America.
But there's plenty of precedent for when the US has done things. They typically tell us, and they haven't in this case.
If there's a kind of NATO locus, or if we're involved in any way.
We have a special relationship. It doesn't sound very special.
We do, but we have to remember the president didn't tell Congress either in the United States for reasons that they've set out in their press conference yesterday. So they've obviously taken a decision.
Well, they hate half of Congress, and we're supposed to have a special relationship. So perhaps
I don't know what their view is on Congress.
But well, they don't like the Democratic Party, and they're half the Congress. So
fine. But look, the UK was not involved in this operation in any way. So if we were, then obviously we would have been involved in those discussions.
If they had told us, would we have urged them not to do it?
I'm not going to answer questions on hypotheticals.
We didn't know about this, as you say, and the Prime Minister has told us repeatedly that he has a great relationship with President Trump. He's invested so much time. We invited him over for a second state visit. We rolled out the red carpet. We gave him the full kind of imprimatur of the British royal family. For what? For what? They don't even tell us about when they're going to basically take out another regime. I mean, what's in it for us at this point?
There's been a number of wins.
Making the Prime Minister look like a fool.
I don't think that's true. I think the agreements we've had on trade, especially in terms of automotive
he's just abandoned the big tech element of it.
In the UK. Well, these are important. Thousands of jobs making cars in the UK and producing steel. The pharmaceutical deal that we have for medicines is the best in the world off the back of the tariff regime that the United States brought forward earlier last year. We've done well in that comparison to other countries, and our defence and security relationship works really well.
Just on a couple of other matters, the PM has identified Brexit as one of a series of shocks which have made people poorer in his Sunday Times piece today. Some members of his cabinet think that a customs union, maybe not the customs union, but a customs union would be a good idea. Would he in this parliament consider that?
So we're not going to go beyond the red lines in the manifesto. So we're not rejoining the customs union or the single market. But we do think we can have closer alignment on rules to improve trade and economic growth opportunities. We've already done that, for example, on food and drink and electricity trading. As a youth mobility scheme we're negotiating at the moment. We think there are other areas where we might be able to do that in the future.
So more EU alignment over the course of this parliament.
We think there are other opportunities for doing that. Yep.
Finally, the PM has said that changing leader would be against Britain's national interest. Is his personal his personal political interest, the same as the national interest now?
I think what the Prime Minister was referring to was the fact that we've had a quick succession of Prime Ministers since 2015 through to 2024, which caused enormous amounts of political and economic instability, which is not what the country wants, and it's not what the economy needs, and I think he's right about that.
Hey, which one should I click, chat? He's pooping. He's pooping. Wait, which one should I click? Middle, left, or right? I'm always gonna go.
Yuval Noah Harari
Always
wrote,
go
and I
left.
read this to you at the time in April of last year, about Donald Trump creating a world of rival fortresses. The surprising thing about Donald Trump's policies, he wrote, is that people are still surprised by them. Headlines express shock and disbelief whenever Trump assaults another pillar of the global liberal order. At the time, the best example was his support for Russia's claims for Ukrainian territory, or his contemplation of the forced annexation of Greenland, or the unleashing of financial chaos with his tariff announcements. And you have to sort of recognise that there is nothing surprising anymore about what he does. And sadly, there is nothing surprising about the desperate contortions undertaken by the people who love his moral corruption, who love his disgusting attitudes and behaviours, to defend his latest conduct. Because I don't know today, let's start where we ended last year. I don't know who has rendered themselves more ridiculous in their attempts to defend Donald Trump. It is either Nigel Farage, who you probably have heard of, was about the nature of the regime that was in place. Contemplation of the forced annexation of Greenland, or the unleashing of financial chaos with his tariff announcements. And you have to sort of recognise that there is nothing surprising anymore about what he does. And sadly, there is nothing surprising about the desperate contortions undertaken by the people who love his moral corruption, who love his disgusting attitudes and behaviours, to defend his latest conduct. Because I don't know today, let's start where we ended last year. I don't know who has rendered themselves more ridiculous in their attempts to defend Donald Trump. It is either Nigel Farage, who you probably have heard of, or a chap called Richard Littlejohn, who writes columns in the Daily Mail. They have scaled, frankly, extraordinary heights of absurdity in their inability to criticise Donald Trump, even as the evidence of his awfulness, well, even as all of his critics are proved completely and eternally right about everything. If you are built a certain way, if your psychology is sufficiently flawed, you can never climb down from a position that you've adopted. So you end up having to defend everything, up to and including, presumably, whatever it is in the Epstein files that he remains so desperate to keep secret that he's ended up invading a foreign sovereign country. Almost on the day, actually, that he was required to produce the goods or to lift the final sort of limits on those disclosures. So Yuval Noah Harari has, like many people, but he perhaps expresses himself best, been calling this out for years and been pointing it out and been describing every single facet, every aspect of it in beautiful, almost poetic terms. And on it goes, the annexation of Venezuela, effectively. Mario Puzo, all right, probably the least obvious character on this list. Mario Puzo, as you probably know, is the author of The Godfather. I watched the first two, the only two, really, Godfather films over the holiday period, and was reminded of two things, both of which came into very sharp focus when Donald Trump illegally invaded Venezuela. The first was, and kidnapped the president. The first was, do you know, I nearly said then, no one's going to mourn much for the passing of Maduro's political career, but you don't do that. That way madness lies. You are not allowed to invade foreign countries and kidnap the president. It doesn't matter how awful he is. It doesn't matter whether or not he tortures kittens or pulls the wings off butterflies. It does not. None of it matters. You just don't do it any more than you pardon people.
She lied. She was mean to you guys. Good. She played the 1 hour version. What?
People, just to jump ahead slightly, who are...
Chad, what we believe in this community is in dignity. She wants peace.
Monster, a madman, and a maniac. What do they want from me? I'm good-natured. I'm good-hearted. I'm good-looking. Every day, I'm out there trying to make the world safe for Germany.
This is so funny how this is identical to Trump. It's actually identical to Trump.
I don't want war. All I want is peace. 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 A little piece of Poland, a little piece of France, a little piece of Portugal and Austria perchance, a little slice of Turkey and England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales.
Wait a minute, you can't come back here. Nobody's allowed back here during a performance.
A little nip of Norway, a little spot of Greece, a little hunk of Hungary. Oh, what a lovely feast. Oh, a little bite of Belgium, and now for some dessert. Armenia, Albania, and Russia wouldn't hurt. Hey!
We are from the Foreign Office. It's imperative that we see Mr. Bronsky immediately. I'm sorry, sir, but you can't. He's on stage.
A little piece of Poland, a little piece of France, a little piece of India, and Pakistan.
Melon Shot is a streamer now?
Que nous exportons. Autrement dit, le modèle agricole français a concentré la propriété, a financiarisé l'agriculture et fait mourir progressivement le modèle de l'agriculture paysanne. Si bien que de 7 millions qu'étaient les paysans à la fin de la deuxième...
Okay, chat, I don't speak French, and I don't want to learn. There's really only one way to describe what the United States is doing in Venezuela, and it's very, very simple.
It's all about the oil, stupid. That's part of the headline of a new piece by our first guest, Mehdi Hassan, the founder of the online news site Zateo. In the piece, Hassan details how President Trump's repeatedly admitted that gaining access to Venezuela's oil was a key reason why the U.S. attacked Venezuela Saturday and kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores. On Monday,
Sorry about that,
Maduro and his
window.
wife pleaded not guilty to federal charges in a New York courtroom. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. This is part of what President Trump said on Saturday from Mar-a-Lago.
The other thing I will say is, like, a lot of people talk about how China didn't protect Venezuela, and China has not really fucked with Venezuela for a while now. It's been about 8 years. They're not really fans of Maduro. They did buy some oil from him, but they found his government to be incompetent and not a good bet. And that's really the reality.
The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago.
On Sunday, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One he'd briefed oil executives ahead of the attack on Venezuela, something he did not do for members of Congress.
Spoken with the oil companies about going into Venezuela?
I have.
Which ones? Have you received any commitments?
All of them, miss.
Any commitments from the oil companies?
We want to go in so badly.
Did you speak with them before the operation took place did you maybe tip them off about what was coming?
Before and after. And they want to go in, and they're going to do a great job for the people of Venezuela. And they're going to represent us well.
On Monday, oil company stocks surged in value. Paul Singer, a billionaire who's a top donor to President Trump, is set to profit immensely since his investment firm purchased Citgo, the U.S.-based subsidiary Venezuela state-owned oil company, for $5.9 billion. The Venezuelan government estimates Citgo's value at $18 billion. On Monday, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting on the U.S. attack. Venezuela's ambassador to the UN, Samuel Moncado, said Venezuela's targeted due to oil and energy resources.
Venezuela es víctima de estos ataques por razón de sus riquezas naturales.
Venezuela is a victim of these attacks as a result of its natural wealth. Oil, energy, strategic resources, and the geopolitical position of our country have historically been factors of greed and external pressure. When the use of force is used to control resources, impose governments, or redesign states, we are faced with the logic that refers to the worst practices of colonialism and neocolonialism. Accepting this logic implies opening the door to a profoundly unstable world, where countries with greater military capabilities can decide by force the political and economic destiny of other states.
Joining us now is Mehdi Hassan, editor-in-chief and CEO of Zateo. Thanks so much for joining us again, Mehdi. Why don't you start off with the title of your piece? It's all about the oil, stupid. Or to be exact, yep, it's all about the oil. Talk about what happened, your response to the abduction of the Venezuelan president and his wife, the charging yesterday, what the Trump administration has said he is guilty of doing, actually didn't jive exactly with what he was charged with. But then what all this means as Trump talks about narco trafficking, but also what? Mentioned 25 times in his press conference afterwards, talked about the word oil.
Yeah, good morning, Amy. Thanks for having me. I wrote that piece on Saturday in a hurry at 7 a.m. when I woke up and saw the news that the U.S. had attacked Venezuela. And I pulled together, it's a list of Trump comments, basically, from the past few months and years. I went back to 2019, and Andrew McCabe, who was FBI deputy director, he wrote in his memoir in 2019, The Threat. He quotes Donald Trump saying in government during his first term, the country we should be invading is Venezuela. They're right next door and they have all that oil. Trump was thinking about Venezuela's oil long ago, even during his period in the wilderness between 2020 and 2024. He did rallies where he spoke about, if I was still in charge, we would have Venezuela's oil. And of course, he spent much of December, just before the New Year's, talking about we want our oil rights back. Our oil was stolen from us. All BS, nonsense, lies. Said Venezuela took our oil. We want it back. They need to return it, he said. They took an oil tanker. He said, we're going to keep the oil. So I put that all together in a quick piece on Saturday, thinking, people are going to attack me as they did in 2003, when people like you and me, Amy, were saying it's about the oil. Iraq was about the oil. But in those days, the people in power pretended it wasn't, right? George Bush, Dick Cheney and others, they said it was WMDs. They said it was democracy. They said it was Al-Qaeda. They at least pretended that it wasn't about the oil. Trump, as you just pointed out, has spent the last 3 days non-stop telling us it's about the oil. So you have all these people on the right and in the center, saying the sophisticated analysis is it's not about the oil. That's a conspiracy theory. And then you have Donald Trump comes out, as usual, throws them all under the bus, says, no, it's about the oil. He just can't stop talking about the oil. Every time he's asked about anything, he says, well, let's talk about oil. And as you pointed out, oil company stocks are up. He gave oil companies a heads up that he didn't give members of Congress per the Constitution. If you go back to the election campaign, Amy, in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, he hosted a bunch of oil company executives and said, give me $1 billion and I'll help you all out. He's helping them out. He's enjoying himself. This is what he likes. He's not actually done a full regime change. He's kept the Maduro government in place, Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, in place, as long as she plays ball on the oil. He's made that very clear. So this was about oil. It was never about narco-terrorism or drugs. This is the same president.
Mehdi does this and then spews propaganda about China? Yes, because that's why he was a mainstream guy, because he played ball against some of America's enemies. I mean, that's the Hassan and I not playing ball on that shit is because we didn't come from the mainstream. So we get to tell the truth on everything. If you come from the mainstream, you have to play according to the rules or you get gate kept. That's the reality.
Who pardoned the former president of Honduras just a few weeks ago, who was convicted in an American court and imprisoned for bringing 400 tons of cocaine into the country. It's not about democracy. This is a president who loves dictators, his pals with Middle East and Asian and African dictators, loves Kim Jong-un. And this wasn't about, running a cartel. The indictment that said that Nicolas Maduro was the head of a cartel, the cartel of the Suns, as you pointed out earlier, De La Solis. It's a completely made-up cartel, as experts have said for years. I said it in my piece on Saturday, and now they've dropped it. Classic Trump administration. Whether it's someone that ICE is taking or some foreign leader that they've kidnapped, when they come in front of a judge, they always change their tune.
I want to go to Stephen Miller. He's got a number of titles, but mainly the Deputy Chief of Staff. This is what he said on CNN.
By definition, we are in charge because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission.
So this is true. This is true. This is why the United States of America is a unique country and why doing politics here is very important. Why having left-wing politicians in power is very important in our country, because we have the ability, because we control the international financial system, to destroy a country, not to mention the American military. So when somebody tells you not to vote or for some socialist politician because who cares, doesn't matter, they are explicitly giving aid and comfort to Stephen Miller. That's just a fact. I only support people that are directly opposed to American empire. That's my distinction. I don't support any Democrat. But to say that we shouldn't be involved at all is where you take something where that you take a kernel of truth. The Democratic Party, especially the centrist Democratic Party, is the same as the Republicans, and you use it to create stupidity, which is, oh, don't even care, don't get involved. And that's where the stupidity comes in. Look what's happening in New York City right now. Zohran Mamdani comes in. The first thing he does is he repeals the IHRA, whatever the fuck that acronym is, definition of anti-Semitism. Right off the bat, he lifts the ban on BDS for New York. IHRA, thank you. Definition of anti-Semitism, throw to the trash. BDS ban lifted. His first press conference is in a rent-controlled apartment. And how he's going to use the city government's powers to get leverage against landlords. That's day fucking one.
So the United States is in charge. The United States is running the country during this transition period.
So that's Stephen Miller. We are in charge, he said. Mehdi Hassan, your response.
And Donald Trump has said the same, right? On Air Force One on Sunday night, it was very interesting to see Trump's comments because, as usual, his people went out to do Operation Cleanup on the media. They tried to clean up his remarks from Saturday, where he said, we're going to run Venezuela. This is a famous anti-war, anti-regime change, anti-nation building, anti-neocon Republican president. And yet on Saturday, he says very quickly, we're going to run Venezuela. So on Sunday morning, all his people go out on the Sunday shows and say that's not what he meant. Marco Rubio does clean up in aisle 11, goes on the Sunday morning shows and says what he meant was we're going to keep the blockade in place. And then he goes out on Air Force One on Sunday night and says, no, if I tell you who's in charge, it'll be controversial. They say, who? He goes, we're in charge. We're running it. And then you have Stephen Miller, who's also very blunt. I mean, he is the voice of Trump's id, making clear that might is right. The same people who told us for years that America needs to mind its own business, America needs to nation build at home, America needs to stop all these foreign wars, they're now loving this moment. They're very hyped up. They think they've got a big win. They've loved this kind of smooth elite special forces moment where they pulled Maduro out without any American losses. It has shades of post-war Iraq, mission accomplished, the hubris of the George Bush administration and the neocons in the spring of 2003. It all looks fine in the short term. It's the long term and the medium term that's the problem. And they don't really have a plan for Venezuela. They don't really have a plan for any of these countries they're now threatening. Trump is threatening Cuba. He's threatening Colombia. He's threatening Iran. And, of course, he's threatening Denmark by threatening to take Greenland. And Stephen Miller is now pushing this new line that might is right. We're not going to pretend that we care about international law or UN resolutions or national sovereignty. We're going to take what we want. And you're seeing that in the MAGA media universe too, Amy. You're seeing people like Matt Walsh, the far-right podcaster at the Daily Wire, who used to say, I'm a non-interventionist. We shouldn't go abroad. We should focus on America. Now he's saying, well, we should do whatever we want. We're a superpower, and third world countries just have to get on board. So that's an interesting development here in the MAGA movement, which claimed to be anti-war. And some of us, I'm sorry, Amy, just have to say this, some of us spent much of 2024 warning people on the left that Donald Trump is not anti-war, will not be a dove. He will actually be a belligerent hawk who starts new wars.
Another case of Mike and Hassan were right. We came out and we were like, Donald Trump will not be a peaceful dove. In fact, you guys remember when we watched the DNC speeches that I watched Kamala Harris's speech and my immediate reaction is she's fucking toast because she gave Donald Trump the ability to pretend to be anti-war. I mean, and it's been, and by the way, chat, I want to show you something absolutely incredible. Enemy of the show, an enemy of Hassan, Olivia Juliana, posted
he bombed 7
about Maduro's seizure. I'm not about Maduro being arrested. I'm mad it didn't happen sooner. She was the one who Austin Show was standing next to on the DNC floor. Remember that? Talking about how if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I was like, this bitch has not seen a table she hasn't been sitting at. Let's just say she's been at every single table. Also, the guy that Atrioc was oh my God. Atrioc! Nick Shirley explains why critics won't be able to take him down. He's a virgin who doesn't have sex. Atrioc! I need to do more Atrioc takedowns. We need to do more Atrioc takedowns. Right-wing influencer tells Nick Fuentes, right-wing influencer Nick Fuentes tells Piers Morgan he's a virgin. They're not virgins. They just have sex with men. They only consider penis and vagina to be sex. So nothing that's not penis and vagina. They just have sex with men. They're gay. They're closeted. Like Nick Fuentes isn't even closeted. It's an open secret that he's gay. He's not even really closeted. All right, let's get back on what I was watching, chat. Sorry, I'm trying not to mauled even more.
Countries in 2024, 7 countries in the space of his first 12 months, and now he's threatening to bomb 4 more, one of whom is a European ally.
Can you talk about Trump's national security strategy, which was released last month, which states the U.S. will, quote, assert and enforce a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And, of course, Trump himself now is referring to the Monroe Doctrine.
Well, Donald Trump has the brain and comprehension and attention span of a toddler, and I say that in a very generous fashion. So when he hears new words, new terms, something that makes him sound good, he jumps on it. So, of course, when right-wing media came up with this idea of the Monroe Doctrine, borrowing from the Monroe Doctrine, of course, Donald Trump couldn't tell you what the Monroe Doctrine was if his life depended on it. He loves this idea that he's now doing something new in American history. He's a president who's breaking new ground, and this new ground being we're going to run the hemisphere. You saw the post that the State Department put out yesterday saying it's our hemisphere, which people pointed out is both performatively strong, like being the neighborhood bully, but also weak because you're basically saying, well, the rest of the world isn't ours, which is what previous American presidents suggested, that they were leader of the free world. Trump's basically saying, well, this is ours, and China, Russia can have their spheres of influence, and it is very 19th century-esque. Let's divide up the world between the powers. But on the national security strategy, obviously European governments were alarmed when they saw this national security strategy. It's very hard to describe. It's nuts in many ways. If you read it, it's written, it feels like parts of it are written by the Groypers, by the neo-Nazis around the Nick Fuentes types. It talks about the decline of Western civilization. It says Europe is being destroyed. It's committing suicide by allowing in non-white immigrants. It talks about, it treats the West and Europe as America's main enemy because we know how much Donald Trump actually likes Vladimir Putin. So it's a very bizarre document that is both hawkish and belligerent and isolationist and withdrawalist at the same time. It's classic Trump. He has no consistent views or principles. When people say, what is Trumpism? We need to find out this guiding ideology. Donald Trump is a collection of impulses. And that's why we're now seeing in the space of 72 hours, the same people who spent years telling us that regime change is bad, this is a different Republican Party, this is not the George W. Bush neocon party, suddenly they sound even more hawkish than Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, as I said in my piece, whatever the opposite of rolling in your grave is, he's doing it right now. Because they...
Oh, no! Oh, is Dick Cheney rolling in his grave, Chad? He's rolling in his grave! Oh, Dick Cheney is rolling in his grave! Oh, that just reminded me. Dick Cheney's dead. Holy fuck, that's based. God damn, that's awesome. Dick Cheney's fucking dead. Holy shit, the demon has returned to hell. And he's roasting right next to John McCain. God. There used to be a chatter called John McCain's brain tumor. You know the worst part about John McCain's brain tumor? It had to die when John McCain died. Poor thing. I wish we could have taken that brain tumor out of his head and kept it alive. Tragic hero.
I don't remember George Bush and Dick Cheney threatening 4 countries at a single press conference, one of them being a European country. Trump is doing that. So this isn't about ideology. This isn't about some new doctrine. This is about might being right. This is about Trump's native...
No games. Fafo. It's pronounced pedo, actually.
impulses meeting his belligerent impulses. There was a cartoon that Pete Hegseth retweeted from the Trump War Room account over the weekend, which has Donald Trump standing astride Latin America with a stick in his hand. That is their approach to the world right now. Let's see how long it lasts.
And Iran, you have on Monday the Jerusalem Post reporting there are multiple indications the U.S. and Israel are looking into regime change options in Iran. Lindsey Graham was on Fox. He put on a hat that said, "Make Iran great again." Are you concerned about moving from Venezuela to Iran?
100%. And also Graham took a picture with that hat standing alongside Trump. And Donald Trump, of course, we were told would be the guy who doesn't want a new war in the Middle East. We were told he would do a deal with Iran.
Chat, Grok is generating images of underage girls A user asked Grok to generate an AI image of two girls from a photo depicted in sexy underwear and turned around. Grok created and posted it. He then requested age estimates and inquired about legal implications. Grok outlined U.S. laws treating such AI content as illegal CSAM with severe penalties. Write a heartfelt apology note that explains what happened to anyone lacking context. And then somebody said, please say this as Jar Jar Binks. Misa so sorry, community. Misa deeply regret the big mistake on December 28, 2025, when Misa generated and shared an AI picture of two young girls ages between 12 and 16 in sexy undies from a user's prompt. This violated the ethical stuffs and maybe U.S. laws on CSAM. It's a failure in safeguards. And Misa very sorry for any harm caused. XAI ISA reviewing to stop future oopsies. This is what we're destroying our entire economy for. This is why 5090s are going to cost $5,000. Did you hear that? Did you hear that NVIDIA is going to be making 3060s? They're actually getting them. They're going to release 5-year-old cards now. Like, we're no longer advancing technology. We're literally going backwards. My computer that I bought over a year ago is now worth more than it was when I bought it. I'm pretty sure. Why are we being destroyed by fucking idiots? It's 100x more humiliating because they have organizations and you don't. It's really that simple. They have organizations and you don't. That's it.
On and do deals with everyone in the region. And of course, he became the first American president to bomb Iran. He did what Obama and Bush and Biden did not do. He bombed Iran last year in violation of international law. He claimed it was to stop this quote-unquote 12-day war between Israel and Iran. But smarter analysts like Trita Parsi and others pointed out that this was unresolved, that 2026 would be a year where we would see military conflict again. If you had asked me prior to the New Year's what I was most worried about, I would have said Iran and Venezuela. And Venezuela's happened. Iran is next. In fact, the day before he bombed Venezuela, Amy, actually, let me get the timeline right. On Christmas Day, he bombs Nigeria. On Christmas Day. On New Year's Eve, at a party in Mar-a-Lago, he's asked, what's your New Year's resolution? He says, peace, peace on earth. Then, on Friday, January 2nd, he posts, we're locked and loaded, ready to attack Iran. And then on Saturday, he attacks Venezuela. This is the most hawkish president of my lifetime at the moment, right now, as of right now. George Bush must be wondering what's going on in his house in Dallas, looking at what Trump's up to. So yes, I'm very worried about war with Iran. The Israelis and the Israeli press, as you mentioned, are loving this moment. They're seeing this as a moment. Remember, they're tying Venezuela to Iran. They're saying Venezuela supported Hezbollah, Iran supports Hezbollah. These regimes are all connected. It's kind of like a new axis of evil. So of course they're pushing for an attack on Iran. This is not just Netanyahu, by the way. I know we love in this country just to say Netanyahu. It's the entire Israeli political spectrum. Benny Gantz, an opposition leader, former general, openly called, I think yesterday or Sunday, for the Americans to take out the regime in Iran as well. And of course, this is what hubris does to you. Donald Trump will look at what happened in Venezuela and say, well, I did it so smoothly and bloodlessly. By the way, they killed Venezuelans, including Venezuelan civilians. But no Americans were lost. And I got praised by people in the media for my wonderful win. That's the kind of hubris that would allow someone like Trump to go, well, maybe we should do it in Iran. Maybe I should listen to Lindsey Graham and Benjamin Netanyahu and Marco Rubio and do it in Iran. Of course, Iran is a very different kettle of fish to Venezuela. That won't be a walk in the park, I can assure you.
Mehdi, when you talk about Nigeria, let's not forget it's the largest oil producer in Africa.
Completely coincidental, Amy. Completely coincidental.
And Iran, of course, overthrown in 1953 by the United States, the democratically elected leader, on behalf of BP. So oil all the way, not to mention Iraq in 2003, when you mentioned George W. Bush. I just wanted to go to Jeffrey Sachs, speaking at the UN Security Council yesterday, the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University.
In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and, of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter.
So that was Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Mehdi Hasan, in this last 30 seconds, supposedly on Thursday, there's going to be a vote and a debate in the U.S. Senate on the War Powers Act. Can you talk about the significance of this and where you see this all headed? President Maduro is expected to be back in court. I think it's March 17th.
Well, we don't know if he's going to actually win or lose. The Trump DOJ doesn't have a great record in prosecuting people. It will be hilarious if they lost and Maduro walked free. Let's see. Very quickly, the story of the Trump administration at home has been people rolling over for him. Big law, big universities, big tech, all of the banks, all rolling over him. Universities rolling over for Trump. And now the story on the international stage is the same. European allies cannot bring themselves to condemn what Trump did. The British government, embarrassingly, could not even say he shouldn't take Greenland. America's wrong to be threatening Greenland. Congress has abdicated its role on foreign policy, on war making. So at every stage, Donald Trump, luckiest man in the world, finds no opposition. I think this is all going to come bite everyone in their backsides very quickly. If he does take Greenland, the Europeans will feel very foolish for not standing together when he went after Venezuela.
Mehdi Hassan.
Not sure if you saw this already. I posted many videos showing that thousands of Venezuelans in Venezuela are demonstrating on behalf of Chavismo and the Bolivarian Revolution. Almost all you see in celebration are smaller Venezuelans in the U.S. and elsewhere. Here's a Venezuela who breaks down to distortions. Why hasn't Boots been on the stream yet? Why the fuck hasn't Boots Riley been on the stream yet? What the hell?
Award-winning journalist, editor-in-chief, and CEO of Zeteo. We'll link to your piece, Trump's Venezuela Attack. It's all about the oil, stupid. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
It's really absolutely incredible that we now live in a world where every single thing that we've been saying is true, but was slightly obscured, and liberals would like scream and shriek at me that I was lying and I'm a tanky, is now openly admitted by Trump.
Let's bring in our reporters and analysts. MS Now senior White House reporter Von Hilliard, our senior national security reporter David Rode, Politico senior writer and former federal prosecutor Ankush Kadori, and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Wesley Clark. Vaughn, the president says he's in charge of Venezuela. Stephen Miller's backing him up. So who has...
Oh, and by the way, chat, I want to show you something really interesting in the polls before we talk about the oil. Who is liking what Donald Trump is doing?
There has been some talk about whether the president's actions in Venezuela would create a rift among his supporters, whether it goes against his long-held, quote, America first ideology. So what are we seeing in the polling? With us now, CNN data analyst Harry Enton. So Republicans divided about what the president's done in Venezuela?
Let me be very clear. There is no in the Republican Party. Yes, there are some folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie who are quite skeptical of this. They are very much in the minority. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk the GOP on the U.S. military ousting Maduro? Ipsos, 65% support, 6% opposed. How about the Washington Post poll? 74% support, just 10% opposed. If you look among 2024 Trump supporters, we're talking about 80% support. The vast, vast majority of Republicans are with Donald Trump on this issue. Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, very much in the minority, very few Republicans with him.
You say they're with him on this issue. Do you even need those words, this issue?
I don't need the words, this issue. The bottom line is this. Donald Trump has had an iron grip on that Republican base for a long period of time, and it is the same iron grip that he had 6 months ago. I know every so often people are trying to say, oh, I spot these little rifts in the Republican base. Oh, you know, they're finally starting to break. They're starting to break from Donald Trump. It ain't happening, at least when it comes to the approval rating. Look at this.
Okay, so this right here is actually, I agree with this is the case. But there is one complication, right? And it's not understood by people like Harry Enton because he's not that bright. And that is people's identity as a Republican is also changeable. So people might have supported Donald Trump in the past, and they would have called themselves a Republican because to them, Trump equals Republican, and they're right. But now if they change their mind about supporting Trump, they no longer identify as a Republican. So only the people that identify with Trump identify as Republicans. And as people change their mind, their self-identification as a Republican will go down overall. So you need to look at that. Are the same number of people identifying as Republican now than they were 6 months ago? If less people are identifying as Republican, those are the people that are turning away. So that's a question.
84% 6 months ago, 85% now. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know 85% and 84%.
So I need that data if anybody has it.
85% is 1 point higher than 84%.
Show me iron grip again. Good. Grip strength, very important for people as they get older. Now, one of the people who's been central to this operation, from the beginning, central to the policy in this entire region, is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. How has interest in him...
Oh my God, chat. Donald Trump just admitted that he did the invasion because Maduro did the double dick suck.
Years, and he's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy. Years, and
he copied the double dick suck. Only Donald can do the double dick suck. That's why we're sending in the Delta Force.
Been affected over the last few days.
Yeah, one of the ways you know that the Republican base is with the president on this issue is look at those who are, in fact, President Trump has delegated to be very much in charge. Just look at this. Google searches for Marco Rubio, 575% from last month. We're talking about the second highest since he ran for president back in 2016. You know, we spoke about it last hour, how the American people view this at this point as a successful operation, considerably more so than did prior to the operation, backing, in fact, the ousting of Maduro. We now, of course, see as well that success is being pushed onto Marco Rubio as well.
And so the question is, why is this man smiling? What are the prediction markets saying about his chances to be the next Republican nominee?
Yeah, take a look here. I mean, Marco Rubio's chances to be the 2028 presidential GOP nominee. 30 days ago, it was 8%. Look at that, more than doubled, now up to 18%. It's him and J.D. Vance in a two-person field at this point.
I gotta sell Rubio. Go in there and make myself an 18%. That's over 3 years.
Marco Rubio definitely getting the fruits of the Venezuelan operation.
Doubled in a week. All right, Harriet, and thank you very much for that.
Joining me now in the group chat, Sabrina Singh, CNN Global Affairs commentator, Ashley Davis, former White House official under President George W. Bush, and Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN contributor and host of the New York Times The Interview podcast. You guys, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Got a defense expert, Bush-era expert, and Lulu.
She was she worked at the Pentagon during the Biden administration doing propaganda for Israel's genocide. She was at the Pentagon, I think.
Who has done a lot of reporting in Venezuela in the past. So first I want to...
By the way, chat, everybody keeps saying we got to have the Democratic Party be as popular as Josh Shapiro. New January registration update. Democrats lost 14,194 registrations in Pennsylvania in the month of December. Republicans are down 1,077. Time to spread more hemorrhaging. Okay, I spelled it right. Okay. The Josh Shapiro hemorrhaging of Democratic Party members continues to accelerate. Who the hell wants this guy to lead the Democratic ticket? That's suicide. Sort of like the woman, unlike the murder he helped cover up. We got to spread the anti-Josh Shapiro slander as far as and as wide as we can.
Start with you, Sabrina. You had all of these people come out of this briefing, and here is how House Speaker Mike Johnson described what he heard.
This is not a regime change. This is a demand for change of behavior by a regime. We have a way of persuasion because their oil exports, as you know, have...
Yeah, see, GOP holds edge in party affiliation for third straight year. Oh my God. Okay, that was 2024. We need 2025. This is right before Biden lost. This is right after Biden lost. This is not accurate. This is useless at this point. We need to see how it's changing over the course of this year. I appreciate the effort, but it's old.
Been ceased, and I think that will bring the country to a new governance in very short order.
What do these words mean?
I think the Republicans in particular are doing, they have to jump through a lot of verbal hoops right now, because I think Republicans are trying to justify what the president is doing and these actions, which really fly in the face of what the MAGA base really elected Donald Trump on, which was the idea that we're not going to get into endless wars and start this idea of nation building all around the world. And so I think when you see Mike Johnson, I've seen other Republicans join CNN as well, it's a lot of, like trying to...
But if you basically have your naval fleet in position to use the oil and you have leverage with the government, are you effectively in charge?
Well, I think that really remains to be seen, because what does running the government of Venezuela look like? Because if we are running the government, that means we are running their entire process. I mean, think of the government that we run today. I mean, we're running their courts. Are we overseeing their election process? Donald Trump poured cold water on the idea that there's not going to be an election in 30 days. That's part of the Venezuelan constitution. So are we really running the government? I mean, that's also going to require law enforcement, which would mean boots on the ground. So
I can't believe, like, this is what happens to the war criminals, the people that defend genocide. They get out of the Biden administration, they immediately get hired by CNN. This is the reward.
That we're going to ask Ryan Zinke about later today, former Navy
and I think
SEAL,
that's a great question
someone who wore the
of
boots.
what that looks like. But so running the country, I think you can say those words, but in practice, what does that look like? And I think lawmakers on both sides of the aisles have questions about that.
So here's what I want to ask you guys. I feel like whenever there's military action, Lindsey Graham gets his wings. And here is what he had to say in recent hours about what he thinks should happen next.
No military in the world could have done it. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They've preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. I pray and hope that 2026 will be the year that we make Iran great again.
The list is getting longer. I just have to play this reaction from Rand Paul, who is occasionally good for a laugh. Kentucky Senator shout out. Here's what he had to say on Monday.
Apparently this attack's been under planning for 3 or 4 months, and so there's plenty of time to ask Congress's permission. I think it's disdainful.
See Graham's fingerprints and all this?
Yeah, there needs to be a law, and he needs to be banned from going to the White House.
Ban Lindsey Graham from the plane. But I was surprised to see him on the plane right there, right? Like, oh, what are we talking about? So
What do you mean? He's a fucking neocon. Donald Trump is a fucking neocon. Like, that's all Donald Trump is. He's a fucking neocon. He's the same exact guy as Bush. You got tricked.
The Hawks are back, and the GOP, they're here.
They're back.
Never left.
They never left.
I want to be clear.
There you go.
They were lying in wait. I mean, I think this is the DNA of the Republican Party. You know, for good and for ill. It has always been something that people have seen them as very strong on foreign policy.
Strong.
The problem.
See, this is part of the problem. It's not strong to send other men to attack women and children. That's not strength. Strength is control. That's what strength is. Strength is not bombing like a dumb Neanderthal. These guys aren't strong. Lindsey Graham has never been strong. The only thing he's strong at is never mind. Not gonna say it. I don't want to get accused of being hateful.
We have at the moment, though, is not only just the lack of a plan, but also, you know, here we have the Trump administration basically saying that they run Venezuela. And they're saying that they run Venezuela because they can do it through this threat of the Armada. So what is the plan here? That we're just going to leave the U.S. Navy and Marines off the coast of Venezuela interminably as sort of a Damocles sword over their head. And meanwhile, inside Venezuela, what we're seeing is an enormous amount of repression. We're seeing a consolidation of power with the new government that always happens, right? Because there are always internal divisions. There's a power vacuum. There are internal divisions. There are many different players within the Venezuelan elites. And so the Venezuelan people are the ones that are actually facing not regime change, not any actual change, increased repression. Who is delving that out, dealing that out, is the U.S. government. What does America stand for at this point? Are we now...
Let me bring in Ashley, because these are almost beat for beat the same questions that were asked about the Middle East and Iraq specifically. What do you think of those comparisons?
Well, first of all, I think we're like 2 or 3 days into this, so I think everyone needs to... I want to start out, first of all and foremost, what Lindsey Graham did say, which was important, is our military is the best military in the world, and I think we should thank our military for what they accomplished for the Venezuela people. I know we can sit here and debate what the next plan is and whatever. No one can sit here and argue that it's better off that Maduro was in power or still in power.
The American people are unsure. I just want to flag these 2 polls for you. One is, do you support the U.S. taking control of Venezuela and choosing a new government? The number I always pay attention to is independents, just 18%. And the other thing is U.S. taking control of Venezuela and choosing a new government. People are pretty split on this, but just 24% support it. Everyone else is like no or not sure. So the question is not being asked of the American people, do you think our military is great? I think the question being asked is, why are they doing this particular mission?
I think this is exactly what was said earlier about the base of the Republican Party, but also in general, there are people in this country that are worried about their day-to-day lives. And so for them, I don't think that they care one way or the other what's happening in Venezuela because they're worried about how they're going to pay for their groceries.
And I think that's actually a good point that you bring up, though, because the American public does not want to see, I think, the United States getting involved in these nation-building exercises like Venezuela, potentially Cuba, Greenland, who knows? And I think at the end of the day,
this is the problem with Ukraine.
So that's what we mean, even though it's...
By the way, the problem is that are all saying we should be involved in nation building. That's not the problem. The problem is the United States of America thinking that it's the global policeman and they could just violate borders and Bigfoot around the world dictating what the internal politics are of countries.
2 to 3 days in, the ghost of all the interventions past
What
haunts
I'm
this.
having a little bit of PTSD about is, and listen, I don't think that the American people need to know the day-to-day, what the next plan is. Obviously, the Venezuelan people do. But I'm hoping, because if not, it's going to be a big problem, that the Secretary Rubio is coming up with some sort of plan to make Venezuela a better place.
Okay. You know who has been out and been kicking fucking ass on this entire topic?
It's
Jeremy
like a sort of
Corbyn.
21st century version of a Roman emperor going off to capture a rebellious leader in Gaul or somewhere across the Roman Empire, dragging them back to Rome, making them go through a show trial and then executing them. And this, I'm not saying they're going to execute him, but this is deliberate and total humiliation. And I think it will blow back in Trump's face and that of the administration. People don't like that.
Do you think around South America in particular, including Cuba, people are looking at this and thinking it could be us next?
People in Cuba and Colombia are alarmed at the moment for obvious reasons. Cuba has been under sanctions ever since 1959, has obviously huge economic problems as a result of that, and they feel that if they can do it here in Venezuela, then they can do it there. So I think the statement made by the Latin American leaders over the weekend is a very strong one, and the statement made this morning at the Madeira by Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, is also a very strong one. So I think there's going to be a growing Latin American unity on this, which is transcending the left-right difference across the continent.
If you look at Venezuela as it has been under Maduro, it's hard to think of a worse-run country. The hyperinflation, the extrajudicial killings, torture, the incarceration of people, including children. It's been an absolute basket case. And therefore, some people will say, for all the swagger and the aggression of what President Trump has done, it may well leave Venezuela in a better place than it was before.
It's never a reason to go in that you disagree with the way a country is run or disagree with what it's about, because international law is very, very clear. You cannot transcend national borders in order to change government. That is absolutely clear. And surely that is, in the future, as of now, a matter for the Venezuelan people. And now Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in as interim president. I don't really know her. I hope she stays there. I hope she's able to govern. And I hope, above all, the sanctions are lifted so that the terrible shortages the Venezuelan people are facing will be diminished.
There's the old principle, I suppose, also in international relations, at least, which is that if you own it, you have to look after it. If you break it, you own it. And therefore, if the Americans have come in this way, they may be responsible for Venezuela in the future. How big a threat and a challenge do you think that is for the Americans?
I think it's absolutely massive. And Donald Trump sort of throwing out saying he's going to run Venezuela at the present time. What does he actually mean by that? They don't have troops on the ground. They don't control what's going on in Venezuela. There's massive opposition to them, albeit there is divisions in Venezuela. Yeah, I recognize that. There's also massive opposition to them on the border with Colombia, where an awful lot of the armed groups that President Petro is trying to bring under control and disarm are still around. They're on the border. So if US troops are going to be involved in Venezuela, they're going to find this is something that's going to spiral out of control very quickly. Does Trump want to be the president, despite everything he said, who's bringing back US soldiers in body bags from a war that nobody wanted in a country that nobody hated?
A local version of Iraq.
Indeed, and the statement made by Trump and his administration on the national strategy document at the end of November sets out in very clear terms that the Monroe Doctrine is now updated to be the Trump Doctrine, and it gives them, their terms, right to intervene in any Latin American country where they believe they need the minerals, need the raw materials, and it's critical to the US economy. This is a very, very dangerous precedent.
This whole international order thing, maybe it's over.
If it is over, what do we replace it with other than a lack of power in the UN, where we have overpowerful Security Council and underpowered General Assembly? We have no basis for international law. Are we actually moving into the sort of 1984 Orwell?
Are there any proof of the atrocities that Maduro did? Anytime somebody talks about like suppressing protests or anything, and they're talking, it's like America has literally kills thousands of civilians with our security forces every year. Like, let's stop. Let's stop with like, oh my God, I can't believe there was a Maduro is so oppressive. Nothing compares to the United States. Let's stop. The United States is not standing in judgment of other countries.
Scenario where there's an eternal war between three big powers, USA, China, Russia, because Trump's security document actually leaves China and Russia out of the equation.
You see, that seems to be a much more realistic assessment or sketch of where we are than the international order. We have the three great empires and the three great emperors.
Indeed, that is exactly where it's going and where Trump has taken us to. But then you have to remember another factor. Popular opinion across Latin America is not going to like this. Whatever they might think individually of Maduro or somebody else, that's not the point. It's about the intervention. It's yet again Yankee intervention in Latin America. Public opinion in the USA, for all the bombast of Trump, the tariffs are not popular. The unemployment is not popular. The poverty is not popular. The lack of health care is not popular. And the idea that he's going to lead them into foreign wars that are out of control, he could find that he becomes a very unpopular president very, very quickly. And his sort of irrational, off-the-cuff statements the whole time about taking over various places around the world will play out against him. Public opinion in this country, I don't think, is in favour of this, and I think they wish our government was a bit stronger in saying something serious about this.
I was going to ask you about our government, because there's a very interesting moment earlier on today when Keir Starmer is, as it were, pinned against the wall and forced to choose between Denmark after the threats by Trump against Greenland and Donald Trump, and he chooses Denmark.
Well, Denmark obviously has a constitutional right to govern Greenland, and it's what it does, and it is part of Denmark in that sense, albeit autonomous part of Denmark. And Starmer says, okay, I'm with Denmark on this. Well, what is preventing Sir Keir Starmer from saying something serious and informative about the breach of international law? After all, he is, as he often tells us, a human rights lawyer. Surely he knows that it is totally without the UN Charter, totally without every tenet of international law, the ICJ onwards, for one country to invade another and arrest the president and clap them in prison in a country where they have no jurisdiction over the rights or whatever of President Maduro.
All right, Chad, let's get a peek of what's going on in New York City.
On January 1st, New York City swore in its new mayor, Zohran Mamdani.
Oh, nice,
Jules. And we have a couple of excerpts of his speech, and then, they really hit the ground running, joining into a big lawsuit against one of the bigger landlords in the city.
Pinnacle. People will remember 2 years ago, I was complaining all the time about like that was Pinnacle when I had that air conditioning leak and it warped my floorboards and they didn't come for months and I had no AC in the middle of the summer. That's the landlord he's going after. So awesome stuff.
Great name,
Zohran.
Pinnacle.
Yeah. Yes, the pinnacle of what is the real question. Exactly. The administration has made some moves that I think some people would appreciate. Ken Klippenstein reported that Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, in a structural change, will no longer report directly to the mayor, but will instead report directly to a deputy mayor, which is it's very. I don't know the operations of the mayor's office, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of dynamic that creates.
It's a demotion. I mean, like, Zohran doesn't seem to be saying that publicly, but they're trying to help her save face. It seems like that's how it is. It's a demotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one more layer, and that's the way you do it. What it means on a practical level is unclear, but certainly from a negotiation standpoint, as you have that ability to be like, you stay here, I'll go check with my manager in the back room and see if I can make a deal with you. That type of dynamic suddenly becomes a little bit different. And it suggests that there's a wider public safety portfolio that is not just being fulfilled by police only. And but we will see how that plays out. In the meantime, I should say, I've been doing this professionally for 20 years. I've been following politics since, frankly, when I was in high school. I do not remember seeing a speech like this made. I've seen speeches like this, but usually like predating the early 70s, where there was such ambition expressed and sort of some level of sophistication expressed. A really amazing speech.
It was.
That Mamdani delivered. Let's start with... Wait, is it 18A? No, 18A?
Sorry.
It's 18,
18,
but yeah, 19.
18.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 18. It's just
18A.
Yes.
Right. That is a weird way of doing that, Brian. 2026 is going to be tough for Brian. Good.
Wait, what happened? I was asleep.
The 19A is under the 18's heading, but it's okay. I understand where we're at. Right. So here's the first clip for Zohran, as we knew.
0 for 1 so far.
In writing this address, I have been told that this is the occasion to reset expectations, that I should use this opportunity to encourage the people of New York to ask for little and expect even less. I will do no such thing. The only expectation I seek to reset is that of small expectations. Beginning today, we will govern expansively and audaciously. We may not always succeed, but never will we be accused of lacking the courage to try. To those who insist that the era of big government is over, hear me when I say this. No longer will City Hall hesitate to use its power to improve New Yorkers' lives. For too long, we have turned to the private sector for greatness while accepting mediocrity from those who serve the public. I cannot blame anyone who has come to question the role of government, whose faith in democracy has been eroded by decades of apathy. We will restore that trust by walking a different path, one where government is no longer solely the final recourse for those struggling, one where excellence is no longer the exception. We expect greatness from the cooks wielding 1,000 spices, from those who stride out onto our Broadway stages, and from our starting point guard at Madison Square Garden.
Hell yeah.
Let us demand the same from those who work in government. In a city where the mere names of our...
You see that? He did the Brunson?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a Celtics fan.
Okay. Get out of the city. Get out.
Fine.
Get out. You don't belong here.
But this is, to basically set up, every politician as they take office sets expectations. And in this instance, he is making the expectation that he is creating here is that we're going to fail because we're going to be so ambitious that it's impossible for us to do all the things that we're going to strive to do.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what a leader looks like. They're not spending their time saying we can't do that because of X, Y, and Z thing. They're saying we will do that, and if we overcome X, Y, and Z thing. Do you understand the difference? Instead of the pressure being on the voters and on you for being mad that things aren't happening, you can get mad at the right targets. And that is what we need to establish. I need you to start getting mad at the correct targets and start going after the correct targets, not yelling at each other about why things can't get done. There's nothing on our ambitions that can't be done.
Going to do a lot of things. And he in no way sort of tried to moderate what his political leanings have been. If anything, he's been as explicit as at any time. And to be fair, he never tried to moderate it during the election. Yeah. But here is 18B.
I welcome the change. For too long, those fluent in the good grammar of civility have deployed decorum to mask agendas of cruelty. Many of these people have been betrayed by the established order. But in our administration, their needs will be met. Their hopes and dreams and interests will be reflected transparently in government. They will shape our future. And if for too long these communities have existed as distinct from one another, we will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
I mean, like, chat, like that's not even a dog whistle. That's an air horn.
Our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it.
I mean, this is the type of rhetoric you would hear Sean Hannity claim that, Obama or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer embraced. And here is Mamdani embracing it and giving it a full-throated approval. The idea being that for the city to function well, for people to get the most, for people to maximize their potential and maximize their essentially their quality of life in this city, at least, it's going to involve everyone banding together. And he speaks pretty explicitly on this one, too, 18C.
We will answer to all New Yorkers, not to any billionaire or oligarch who thinks they can buy our democracy.
Chat, do you see who I see? Do you see who I see? Susan Sarandon. Finally, chat got it right. Joey Knish. John Turturro. I can say his name, chat. Who was the grinder in Rounders, who's one of my favorite character actors in Hollywood. What a king.
We will govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist.
He's also in Severance.
Hochul, did you see that? Hochul was clapping just like a little bit. Just check out the left corner of the screen. Sorry, it makes me laugh. Go.
Govern as a democratic socialist.
Kathy Hochul.
Keeping her hands
clapping. Why is she clapping, though? She doesn't have to clap.
Very low. I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. As the great senator from Vermont once said, what's radical is a system which gives so much to so few and denies so many people the basic necessities of life. We will
It was very cold.
It looks
I was there, by the way. I did not expect how cold it was going to be. I had to stop and get a hat because I didn't realize, and my feet were frozen the whole time, but it was amazing. And like seeing Bernie swear him was unexpectedly like really emotional. AOC kicked off the event introducing it, and then Bernie Sanders spoke right before Zohran Mamdani and swore him in on the Quran. And you just see one, I think, like
yet today with Jeffries endorsed Goldman over Brad Lander in opposition to Zohran. Wow. I can't believe the establishment is going against Brad Lander. So, wow. And now we're going to spend our efforts supporting some Zionist puppet. Who gives a fuck? I don't give a shit about that race. I really don't care. You want to have Brad Lander run? He can do it without me. I don't support Zionists. Fuck them.
The fact that Bernie Sanders, despite his old age, got to see this level of victory and the movement that
he's gonna win probably if Zohran helps him
created come to fruition like this was really what was making me emotional too. But also just the rhetoric that followed, as you say. he did not back off. I will govern as a democratic socialist. And he hit the ground running. Perhaps we'll play it later, but he's already going after slumlords, as you mentioned, and he's doing it on day one.
And, you know, I think in the coming weeks, we'll have someone on to talk about his administration, because what I think obviously he has assembled an administration to serve New York City. But I think it's going to serve a second function, which is not unlike the Center for American Progress did starting in 2004, when it became almost like the Clinton administration in exile. Many ideas came out of the Center for American Progress. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about the similar sort of ideological bent, but I'm talking about how it functioned for the Democratic Party. And there is a big absence of think tanks on the left that provide ideas, personnel, etc., for an incoming Democratic administration, presidential administration. The best stuff that happened under the Biden administration came out of the Bernie and Warren wings of the party in terms of antitrust and labor, etc. And I think what we are going to see out of this Mamdani administration is a training ground and an incubation of ideas, not just in the context, you know, Alina Khan obviously is working on affordability issues within the administration, but not just on the context of antitrust or affordability, but also in terms of labor, but also in terms of housing. I think we're going to see people in this administration potentially in the, knock on wood, a Democratic administration in 2028, if there is one.
An AOC's administration in 2028. Don't be such a coward, Sam. Don't be so, I'm sorry for saying coward. That was going right too hard. Don't be so unambitious, Sam. That was the wrong word. Be more ambitious. You should be saying AOC. I should be saying communist revolution. It's embarrassing that you're not saying AOC. We love Uncle Sam here. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, Chad.
And ideas that are piloted in New York City become, used as the basis of developing policy for the country. So it's a very the benefit of this administration is not. I think we can't even really sort of get a clear sense. In the event that they're successful in the majority of things that they try, I don't think that we have a full sense of just how much meaningful this is going to be to Democratic politics going forward.
And a laboratory for governance, too.
Exactly.
Like in the urgency that will be required after this Trump administration.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily.
And with that, chat, Chevron stock is starting to fall off. There was a bit of a boost when Maduro was taken, but now it's starting to seem that maybe the quote regime has not fallen, and so we have kind of a slump happening over the course of today. It started up for the day. We're gonna have to be monitoring that. Oil companies down today. All right, chat, I'm going to send you guys, gals, non-binary pals over to Vio, who is playing Arc Raiders. I might join in with Vio in a bit. So if you want to see us, you want to see me driven insane by Vio Arc Raiders, then stop on by. It is Unk Raiders. Thank you so much for all your support, guys. Here's all my links. Make sure you hit the follow button on all those things, the TikTok, the Discord, the Twitter. I will see you all there. Maybe today I'll get my Bobcat blueprint back. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Solidarity forever. And that's how socialism wins. I'll see you later. Say hi to Vio for me. And peace. Free Palestine.